All right, all right, all right, all right. Bismillah. This is a random one. Bring this further up. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم. People, just check this is coming through. It's been quite a while. I hadn't been feeling well these past few days, but it's been so long, and I was resting, and I thought, you know what? Let's do a let's do a live stream, and let's see who's awake at this godly hour, and it'll be good to maybe share some thoughts. So, wow, people are awake. Ya salam. Rahizi, all right. All the way from NYC. Shadman, Dr. M&M. Shukran. Mab, what an interesting name. Theologisticity. Allah. Ustad, barakallahu feek, always, ameen. Alama, wow, Mark, you're doing it all right at this hour. Allah, Dhul Hijjah, Mubarak, shukran, likewise. May Allah bless it for all of us. Ameen. It's also the 1st of July. Kya baat hai. I will be sharing, by the way, the link for people who want to jump on. Ayub, you're doing it. Ayub al-Maliki. All right, shukran for confirming the sound. I appreciate it. Lee, all right. It's been ages. Ya salam. Mo, shukran. May Allah bless you all. Willie Humperdinck, shukran. Much love for the super chat. I appreciate it. Nora, all right. Awake at this hour. Ya salam. And Willie from Buffalo. All right. Buffalo. The famous, those of you that don't know it, Google it. Buffalo. It's each one represents something different, a verb, a noun, an object. Yeah, so Farouk arrived from Chi-Town, Chicago. America's had a lot going on, hasn't it? Wow, lots been going on. This whole abortion thing, just subsequent, just so much going on. Allahu Akbar. Allah. It's just so. Sometimes we have to just. Not sometimes, most often. We have to switch off. We have to detach, disconnect. From all this worldly, not worldly, but all this kind of the news and all this kind of stuff. It's always negative, almost. From anything that's negative, just disconnect for a moment. Yeah. You can't do anything about it anyway. So tawakkulan ala Allah, have tawakkul. Because it just eats at the soul. Oh, I gotta bring up that comment. One moment. Mufti, soon that Bitcoin mug you have may be worth more than Allah, Allah. I still have my iman, my faith in Bitcoin. I think, yeah, those who are adventurous buy the dip. Allah. Coming back to the more important things, people. It's this. Let's share a few verses, some reflections, and then I'll share a clip. I'm sorry, not a clip. I'll share the link for people who want to jump on and meet and greet and maybe share some thoughts or questions. These verses from Surah Al-Ma'arij, I believe, but the incredibly popular verses, you see them time and time again, describing the nature of insan. And I feel that it's so relevant considering just all the noise that is going on right now. Just flip this, yeah. Considering all the noise, it is so relevant. That A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem. Allah describes the volatility of insan. That innal insana khuliqa halu'a. Allah. That insan has been created halu'a. Hala'. What is that? Some of the Salaf, they asked that what does this verse mean? And the answer they got was the best tafsir is done by the Quran itself. Innal insana khuliqa halu'a. إذا مسه الشر جزوعا وإذا مسه الخير منوعا. Allah. That insan, if some harm, massahu, touches him or her, jazua, absolutely in a state of utter anxiety. It's our fitrah. It's our fitrah, you see. We've been created this way. Allah says, Innal insana khuliqa, has been created volatile. Lu'a. إذا مسه الشر جزوعا. Excessively anxious and panicking. And وإذا مسه الخير منوعا. Allah. But when insan comes in contact with goodness, as in comes upon goodness, here it could mean more so wealth or goodness that is utility, that has utility in the world. Manu'a, he's or she is excessively preventive or preventing in sharing it with others. Ya salam. What a description of insan. Honestly, I love it. It so encapsulates insan. That innal insana khuliqa halu'a. إذا مسه الشر جزوعا وإذا مسه الخير منوعا. And the shar, the harm, comes first. Why? Because we're more likely in this world to nowadays the things have changed, but insan with his journey or her journey of development and evolution for thousands upon thousands of years, more likely to come across harm than they are good. So begins with harm. Insan is in a state of panic. You think, well, surely when they are upon some goodness, they'll be totally awesome. No, manua. Get away, get away. Allah. Allah does say that illa al-musalli. You see. And Salah here goes on to say, الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ. That those who are consistent with their Salah, and I would say Salah here includes Salah and more. It's not just Salah. It includes that. That's obviously a part of it, but it's about the connection, that devotion. دائمون والذين في أموالهم حق معلوم. People who have a known designated allotment in their right. See, في حق, not even في خيرهم, في حقهم. What is my haq? Is my right. But in their right, which is their right, في حقهم, their right. حق معلوم. Sorry, في أموالهم, in their wealth. Sorry, I'm saying their right. في أموالهم, it is their wealth. حق معلوم. There is a known, allocated haq. They've allocated it. للسائل والمحروم. For the one who asks, for the poor, for the deprived. Allah. See, Allah is showing us, if we just take these verses even just up to here, the antidote to what it begins with. هلع إن الإنسان خلق هلوعا. And you say, well, is there a possible antidote, a possible healing from this hala'a, volatility? Two things come to you in these verses: a devotion to God, and then giving. Allah. It's counterintuitive. You would never want to give something that is good, but you give it, and in it is hidden. It's like a cheat. Think if you were to design a computer game, and in this game you were to hide certain cheats, cheat codes. How would you hide them? You'd hide them where people least expect it, almost counterintuitively. That some of the most greatest peace, inner peace, comes from sharing the goodness that you have. It doesn't even make any sense. But that's how it's hidden. Allah. But we can take these verses just as a template for the fitrah of insan. And we can see it everywhere in the world around us. Innal insana khuliqa halu'a. إذا مسه الشر جزوعا وإذا مسه الخير منوعا. And in many ways, knowing that, it can help us be more patient as well, more understanding of the chaos we see in the world around us, because this is the volatile fitrah of insan. May Allah make things easy for us all. Ameen. Wow. Let me right. Right. Shukran, shukran. Fahad, much love, much love. Yes, shukran. I mean, yeah, I'll share the link. I did want to, I was supposed to, it was organized that me and Mamadou, we were supposed to have a mind trap discussion, um, just gone. It was meant to be earlier this week, but I had just not been feeling well, and yeah, I'd been shaking this malaise kind of off, and and I was hoping, and I am hoping to unpack more of the American kind of discourse that is going on, but just some words. This Roe versus Wade and this whole abortion chaos that we are hearing. It's strange because you wouldn't imagine this kind of a discussion in any developed country in the world. I mean, it wouldn't even be a discussion. So it's strange, yeah. I saw people sharing comments, tweets, clips. Right. I saw some people celebrating it because they felt this is somehow Islamic. America is a strange country, isn't it? It truly ought not to be one country. But then the problem would be if it wasn't one country, they would just be bombing the hell out of each other. So its survival had to be one unified country. But it's so bizarre how radically different and diverse the polarized ends of the great United States is. It's just wow. I feel in some way, not in a, I'm not trying to say this in a, like an apocalyptic sense or anything like that, but I feel that we are witnessing the beginning, or maybe we have been for a little while now, of the dissolution of the great United States. And what I mean by that is as the self, the great, the huge entity, super entity that it was. The world has kind of shifted from that unipolar being, this kind of sun around which the globe orbited. It's moved away to to multiple polarities. I feel it's no longer, I mean, even just many things. The Russian war is clearly an indication of that, and even things like this abortion kind of chaos that is going on. So it's bizarre. You see, to me, it makes no sense to celebrate this, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I don't see how that is anyhow something to be celebrated. I feel it's quite bizarre. Reason being that, look, so from an Islamic perspective, first of all, because a lot of people I saw brought Islam into this to rejoice and celebrate. Now, even though there are, because from what I understand, the ruling now has denied a fundamental right to abortion and has left it to the states to determine with, from what I've read, if I recall correctly, I think 26 states moving to ban abortion in its entirety, including, or what's suggested is in every single manifestation of that, be it whatever, be it rape, be it incestuous, be it you name it, whatever it be, and at any point in the pregnancy, from the day after right up until. So, okay, I mean, that is. So, from an Islamic perspective, I understand that some scholars in Islam traditionally, and they've usually Shafi'i scholars, had found their view is aligned with some of the Catholic Church view that really at conception life begins, and therefore some people attribute that to, I believe, even Imam Ghazali, but I've heard it being challenged that wasn't his view. But definitely the Shafi'iyya, some of them, that conception happens the moment, the moment conception happens, it is a sacred life and it is haram to have abortion. And that um, is the view of some Shafi'i scholars, I believe. But this view is such a minority fringe view in Islam, such a minority view, that, and I feel today that maybe maybe the Salafi view as well today. So, and it is the view of the Catholic Church, and the view of Christianity, or much of Christianity, especially the evangelics. So, but most of, if you look at Islamic fiqh, you will have at least two entire madhabs. The Hanbali madhab, which says that ensoulment, we don't consider the same. Obviously, the fetus is alive, but it doesn't have that sanctity of a born human up until 120 days. And that is the view also of the Hanafi madhab. So these are two entire madhabs of the madhabs of Islam. Now, and then the Malikiya are in between them, some saying 40 days, some disputing it. So this is the vast majority of the scholars of Islam did not believe that conception resulted in the sacredness of life in that sense, that like a human being, they believed that the sacredness, the sanctity of life only emerges with the ruh. And they disagreed whether the ruh comes on the 40th day or the 120th day because of the hadith. So that's where the majority of the ulama lies. So the stats, from what I'm aware, show that in the United States, I think 90+% of all abortions take place under 120 days. So that's, I believe, the stats that over 90%, I think 90, I can't remember, 91 or 90 something percent of all abortions that take place in the United States are under that 120-day period. So they usually, within the first 2 months or maybe stretching it to 3 months, but they're not usually beyond, and definitely not beyond 120 days. So Islamic fiqh for hundreds and hundreds of years has seen that kind of dispensation. Now, this isn't to belittle life. Like, nobody, see, you have to understand things, that nobody is saying abortion is a great thing that everybody should go and do. I don't think people in their right mind would ever speak like this, and Muslim scholars have definitely not spoken like that. But there's reasons why people take an abortion. They don't just take an abortion for fun. It's like somebody I remember once discussing divorce. It's the same thing. People say, oh, well, if it was like this, then a person would just go get a divorce. But nobody does these things for fun. Nobody thinks, I know, I'll just go get an abortion. There is a problem, a crisis, a situation going on, and it is subjective. Sometimes it's objective, clearly, like the mother's life could be in danger. So let's say the mother's life is in danger, then the scholars generally agree that the child can be aborted up until the very end to save the life of the mother. So her life is paramount in Islam, above the life of the child. So that's a situation where there's no time limit. And then there's other subjective reasons. And people say, well, is family planning the same as fearing poverty or fearing? You see, there's a difference because the Quran addresses um, people who would kill, and they would usually kill their daughters in Jahiliyyah time. And they would say, khashyata imlaq. Now, imlaq, this kind of impoverished state, it wasn't just khashyata faqar. Faqar is like poverty. It was more than that because the Arabs then had this understanding that they had this, which was a sick, diseased understanding that they saw the daughters as burdensome because the society was a raiding warrior kind of society. So they were just laden with, so to speak, mouths to feed and to defend. And if they had, let's say, many sons, then they could go and fight and they could raid other tribes and they could do stuff. So when they say these were just mouths to feed, it wasn't that they saw them as, oh, that was the main reason that food, because they would have had to feed their boys as well. It wasn't poverty in that sense. It wasn't faqr. The word faqr isn't used. It's imlaq in the Quran, which is this kind of burdened, impoverished state. But it's not simply about food. It's about, well, they're seeing themselves, oh, I'm going to grow old and I've just got these daughters with me. And, we become victims and we can't really go and fight and raid. And I just have to always keep defending them. And up until how long can I defend them? And, if I had more sons, then they could defend. And so this is where they would go and kill. And this was not the same as abortion. They would kill a living child, like a child that's an infant. So, yeah, so it's really a weak analogy. I get it, there's some approximation you could make, but it's not the same. So, yeah, the other thing I was going to say, and that's it really, and then I'll leave this discussion, is that you see, for the Americans, they have a way of life. They have a way of life, just as the West has a way of life. And it has a way of life that people feel that they can choose for themselves. Now, Imam Malik in the Mudawwana, he is asked that those of you that know about the Zoroastrians, the Majus, Imam Malik is asked about them that they one of the popular marriages that they had was incestuous. So they would brother and sister and father and daughter or mother and son. And this is what they had, the nikah al-akhawat wa nikah al-ummahat. It was known. It's still, if you Google it, it was part of the ancient custom. It's a very well known, one of the popular marriages that they had. So Imam Malik is asked that under those regions where we as Muslims have power over them, that should we forcibly prevent these incestuous marriages? He's asked in the Mudawwana, and you can check this. This is Imam Malik's fatwa. Imam Malik's, that he's asked, should we intervene? Should we intercept these marriages? And he says, La, no. He says, it is their way of life. If they do it, it's their way of life. We do not get involved. And he says that Allah has condoned shirk, which he has condoned for people on earth to worship other gods, as in he's condoned that you can't, if a person is a mushrik, you cannot force them to abandon their shirk. Even if they're under your control, you can't forcibly stop somebody from worshipping someone. So if Allah allows and disallows force towards worship and devotion, so Imam Malik said, so what do you think about, and that is, he said, a'zam, much greater than practices. So this ruling with Imam Malik, who is a huge authority in his day and age, he refuses that Muslims intervene forcibly and prevent these marriages, that these have to be choices they make if it's their way of life. To the Americans, that is their way of life. The Americans are not, practicing according to the fiqh. And if they were, which fiqh? Which they're not. So their way of life is they have liberty. So generally, our understanding is always, look, if that's their way of life, that's their way of life. And people should have individual ownership. So people should, if they choose to make a decision, they bear the responsibility. There has to be that kind of freedom. So that's the thing. The other thing, and I'll make this note. This is a skeptic in me. Okay. I find it very difficult to believe. Very difficult. This is for me a tough sell. Sorry, but I'm just speaking my thoughts. Okay. That powerful, wealthy, rich men that live in America, regardless of their faith, are against abortion. I find that really difficult to buy. That, you see, because these powerful tycoons are sleeping around endlessly. They do not want any of the women that they're sleeping with. They must be on endless streams of sexual pursuit. They do not want those women, because these kind of one night stands and all these women to be having their babies, and claim their money. Never want that. I find it very difficult to believe that these men, be they Republican, be they whoever, if they are wealthy, these old, rich, many of whom white men, and this is not about them being white, but I'm taking a stereotype here. They want and are against aborting a child. And that too, because they feel God is going to be happy. That's a tough sell. Sure, even if they believe in God, I find that difficult. I'll tell you now, I've read somewhere, now I'm not saying this is the cause, but it seems more plausible. So let's say that's a case. We weigh that in a scale. Reason these rich, powerful, wealthy, Republican white men, old men, want to outlaw abortion is one. Okay, I accept this one. One is to take a sting at the Democrats. I accept that. That may be a very plausible reason. But the main reason is because they are religious to God. Never. That's such a tough sell for me. Okay, but let's put that on the scale. Now, I read somewhere, what about the thought that what the statistics say, that by 2050, white Caucasian people will become a minority in America. Now, that's what the sociological stats are saying, because at the rate of reproduction with Hispanics and Afro-Caribbean or African American, people, that the white Caucasian population will become a minority within the United States by 2050, which isn't that far away. Now, if white women were not allowed to abort their children, that may result in a much larger white population. Now, this seems very conspiratorial, but as a balance of probability, I don't know. Maybe there's an entirely different reason to why these people are simply voting for that. The people who, the wealthy movers and shakers, I don't mean the people on the ground. They don't really count. Nobody really cares about their opinion. The the movers and shakers, I would feel that that preponderates more, is given the nature of American societies as we know them, and the way sometimes there is this insecurity, a racial insecurity that is so deeply, it's so visceral with certain people in certain, especially, I mean, it's evident. I mean, you get these, you've got so many kind of documentaries and stuff. So to me, that seems more like I would find that more of an, like I would buy that more easily than I would buy the fact that they're doing this because they want to please God. Rich, wealthy old men wanting to please God over abortion. That's a tough sell. They would be so pro-abortion because of the amount of one-night stands, and they would be very casual. I feel sure it could be to appease politics and to take a dig at the Democrats. That part is sustained. I take that that is a valid point. I'm sure that that is a percentage of why this is happening. But I would think, is it really Leviticus, Deuteronomy? Is it really the Bible? Is it really, or is it something, some racial insecurity? I don't know, but I would be more inclined to thinking, well, this probably holds more weight. Allahu A'lam. Not saying this is the reason, but I sure, if I was to just take a pick out of these two, I would probably put my money on this, then think that. Because I don't believe these people, anything is, God seldom comes into the equation. But that's my thoughts. So, and I could be wrong, but we could all be wrong. But I don't know. But I would like to get a discussion on this on Mindtrap. That would be fascinating. Right, let's move on. So once again, don't shoot me, people. This is just a thought. I'm not saying it is that, but it seems that I could see how that could cause a scare. If you tell a people who feel very proud and are already insecure. American people are not American people as all American people, but the state is an insecure state because it's not been around that long, right? So when you tell a people that they will become a minority amongst other races within a few decades, that's all. That means within your lifetime, within our lifetime, we will witness this becoming a minority. That's like, imagine that was to happen in England. I can imagine the people would just go mad. Like I can see that you see these fears are much deeper than you think. They're not, people are not so rational. When they start getting, when these kind of scares become real, how do you think scaring people about immigration and refugees and all that works? It works just because tapping into these fears of, oh my God, they're going to steal your jobs, they're going to do this, anybody. It happens with everyone. It's not just, this isn't just about white people. It could happen with any country. You take any race, any ethnicity, it's basic psychology. You can tap into the identitarian kind of visceral entities and just shake it, and you'll see what will happen. People freak out. I mean, look at the Nazi thing, was exactly that. But it's just, people just freak out. They don't. But yeah. Well, let's move on. I think I spoke too much, as in much longer than I wanted to on that. But yeah, what else is going on, people? Mhm. Shallow Waters, shukran, much love for the super chat. You critiqued occasionalism in the past. You talked about the importance of the laws of nature, but in my honest opinion, it leads to deism because if nature is doing all the work, how does God interact with the world? No, it doesn't necessarily. It doesn't lead to deism, but sure, it could. If you're asking, could it lead to that? Could be one possible iteration, but not necessarily. I always find it interesting that we think we can understand God. I always find it insan, insan. You got to give it to insan. I mean, we can't even understand basic mathematics. And we want to understand God. That's crazy, isn't it? Can we understand infinity? Can we truly? Can we even understand space? Can we? Think of space, the universe. You can only think of it inside more space. You know the famous mathematical proposition of where you add every number to the one succeeding, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, keep adding till infinity, ad infinitum. You know what the answer is? It's minus 1/12. So which makes no sense, but that's the answer. So it's like, what the hell is that about? Or you try to divide something by 0. It's incalculable, as in mathematics breaks down if you divide by 0. This is why Einstein said black holes are where God divided the universe by 0. Breaks down. It's not just it breaks down. You want to understand God. Yes, Salah. And that too, you want to understand him so, as in such a 2D. But you gotta love the audacity. The audacity. It's something. Wow. But yeah, so if you want to understand God, let's begin with quantum physics. Because once you start to look at that, then you realize truly how dumb you are as a human being. Then you realize, damn, I haven't even entered the realm of divinity, and this is like, it's so important. You know, on that note, it's so important to, upon occasion at least, have conversations with really intelligent people. So if you can make friends, befriend some geniuses if you can in something, and upon occasion, have conversations with them, because it really it stops you dead in your tracks and really shows you how, unfortunately, just how non-intelligent you are. Because, and the reason I say this is, look, here, bear with me. The mind is the only organ, if I can use that metaphorically, which we can't compare. So let's say now, because everything else, take a skill. So let's say somebody's an artist and they're drawing, and they can see somebody else drawing or see their drawings and think, wow, that person can do it so well. Man, I'm so handicapped at this. Or somebody is a carpenter and they can see it, damn, bloody hell, I'm so pathetic at this. Or somebody, let's say you look at yourself and you think, oh my God, I'm so out of shape. Look at that person. Oh, they're so amazing. Look at the way their physique. Or somebody can do certain acrobats, or they can do martial arts, or they can run so fast, and you can see it, and you can see yourself, and see that you are not that. Like you are so many notches below that. Now, the mind is the one thing that you can't do that with. You can't step outside of your mind and see how somebody else's mind works and think, damn, okay, mine is so slow. I'm like running on a, a software that hasn't been updated since the past 5 years. So the mind is something you can't do that. So what that does is it leads to a false perception that we think everybody is running more or less at our speed, but maybe they're just a bit better. So when you have conversations with people who are really intelligent, especially friendly conversations, it really shows you that, damn, I didn't understand anything what this person or so much of what this person said. I couldn't even compute it. So it humbles you. And then you feel, oh, wow. I'll tell you a great person to befriend, those of you, is Dr. I love doing this, by the way, occasionally, whenever I get a chance with Professor Faisal Mir, who's the head of quantum gravity research, the center in Canada. I mean, when I have conversations with him, honestly, I just feel, damn. I feel like, oh, I truly am so stupid. And so it's it's like an infinite slap in the face of my pseudo intelligence. Sometimes I may think, oh, I'm so intelligent, and it's like an abrupt awakening. You think, bloody hell, I can't even. And when he'll explain things, and he'll say, look, doesn't it make sense now? And you'll think, no, 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 it does not make any sense. It does not make any sense at all. I don't know what he'll talk about quantum gravity, and he'll talk about these different, and he'll talk about them like it's so obvious. Like he'll be like, he'll explain it in a sentence and say, yeah, like now you get it. And you'll be like, I don't get any of what you've just said. And you realize that I could never be as intelligent as that. Never. Like I just cannot. Like doesn't matter what I do, I would never be that intelligent to understand that. So it's a humbling experience. But then you see, if this is the world that is this complex, why do you think the the essence of God is something that you would, the essence, I don't mean is there a God? I mean the essence and how God operates. Why would you think that would be so easy when we become so dazzled at how software operates? We can't people who are not coding experts, it doesn't mean anything. Like, they totally can't grasp it. So yeah, so my thoughts are, we need to, let's remember this is our journey to God. Don't worry about how the world works. It works. Allah is Allah is in control. But how does that reconcile with free will then? See, one of the best ways to understand this is the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. That you can either, you see, when you look at it, you can either measure speed, like velocity, speed, velocity of something, or the position with the utmost accuracy. You can never measure both at any given time with the utmost accuracy. You can estimate. So it's like, well, if you're going to discuss this, then this is it. So if you're discussing God's perspective, God's in control. Discussing in Insan's perspective, then you're only discussing Insan's perspective and this free will. And then you just set about in your worldly life. Yeah. Salam. Shukran. Desi X edits. Much love for the super chat. Opinion on gender segregation. Is Islam the origin? I don't know what that fully means the question. But look, what I would say is I've got a detailed video on this. You can watch it. We need to emerge from this stuff. Is this, is that? See, it's a shame because we've really, truly lost the true essence of the faith. Honestly, the true essence, the true essence of the faith, I guess, is devotion. Mysterium tremendum et fascinans. This mysterium tremendum, this sacred that is both awe-striking, overpowering, and incredibly fascinating. This is what is the heart of faith. I think, I said this to us. I was speaking with a friend and I mentioned, right, a couple, was it maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I was listening to a brief lecture by Sheikh Dr. Suleiman Misbahi Saab. And I really love listening to his lectures, honestly. They're just brief clips, and I find they do so much for me at this stage in life. And they're all centered on the devotion. And they're not, they are, some of the stories are of a folkloric nature. But I really value and appreciate what's in operation here. And this one day I was listening to his thing, and I went into this deep thought, this kind of, this not deep, I went into this state of mind, this state of consciousness, just into this state, yeah. And I thought about this, about devotion, about everything. And I thought about reason, the voice of reason. And I'm huge about, I've always been a key proponent of the voice of reason. But I thought to myself, in that state of mind, of consciousness, I thought I used to pride myself on my intellect. So much, in a way, for so many years. And if I heard, let's say, these very same lectures, these wa'ath, which are like, I guess sermon isn't the right word because it sounds too formal, but these powerful short stories, even if they're of a folkloric nature, but are about creating a devotional bond. If I heard them they wouldn't have done anything for me. I would have seen it as, oh, this is just like, what does this do? And it's not, I would have looked at it very from an academic perspective. And I was thinking that, you see, this is the same me. It's not, but I can see how valuable the devotion element is, that it is at the bedrock, the heart of everything. It is it is more valuable than the tool of reason when it comes to faith. Not to dismiss the tool of reason. And I just thought to myself that, because in that instant, I could see almost for years, this journey of the intellect, and it's in its own way an amazing, incredible journey. But I felt that it took me so long to arrive, just at this point where I took such a long route to get here. Yeah, I mean, this is why but I guess so my mate had asked me, well, how would you see reason then? And I said that reason is an indispensable tool. And I feel it's it must be there in the toolbox. And I feel reason, you see, the mysterium tremendum, this devotion, the sacred, it is the heart and the soul of faith. It is the primary life for faith. Reason is indispensable in guiding you to what is not that. But in itself, reason cannot guide you to the mysterium tremendum. But it can guide you on what is not that. I don't know. But it's these I really appreciate some of these things at this stage. And I see sometimes some people, hating. This is another thing on certain people on online, and that's another topic. There's just so much conflict, man. There's so much conflict. Yeah, salam. But khair, I digress, people. Let me see if there's a super chat, and I'm going to share the link. And if anybody wants to, where's the invite? He missed a super chat. Let me see. I mean, how did reason lead you to? Oh, wow. So that just see, Allahu Akbar. See how the souls are connected. That you asked a question about reason, and I didn't even read your question, and yet I spoke on reason. Allahu Akbar. How did reason lead you to choose Islam over the other world religions or even New Age spirituality? Rahim Sanwa Shukran, much love from the region between the Sinosphere and the Indosphere. Allah, may Allah bless you and that region. I mean, right. I feel that faith is not. This is the thing, that faith is not chosen by reason. Faith is chosen, or pursued is a better word, by the phenomenon of the sacred or the holy. So it is more something, it is dhawq, it is something experiential. But reason then guides in what that is not to be. So reason guides in filtering what is not to be the sacred. But in and of itself, I feel it cannot truly, in an experiential way, arrive at the heart of the sacred. It can guide you to it by excluding what is not from it. But then there must come a point where you must taste it. If you don't, I feel that you couldn't. It's in some ways, some mystics, they use the hadith. I think it's an apt analogy, metaphorical analogy to use here, even if it may not be right. They speak of the events of the Mi'raj, the Isra and the Miraj. And the Mi'raj, and what they say is, the famous hadith that Jibreel alayhi salam is with the Prophet, and they reach a point of la makan, of no further point to be. This infinite. And the Prophet is to step forward. And he looks at Jibreel to step forward with him. And Jibreel says that in اخترقت, if I pass this barrier, احترقت, I will be set ablaze and burn. I will perish. But you can. And many mystics, they saw as a metaphor that Jibreel alayhi salam, like this, the archangel representing the highest of intellect and reason, that it guided to God right up until that very point. And the Prophet ﷺ, as a metaphor, being the embodiment of ultimate spirituality, that to that point they were there and it was guided, but then reason, it was not to be a reason realization. It was to be an experiential, a tasted, a lived realization. I think that is so profound as a metaphor. Obviously, that's for people who understand or like these this kind of discourse. I've got some people joining on. Let me. I got right. Okay, these. Right. So somebody said Mufti's got Ram Ibn Rushd al-Ghazali. What about, you see, the meeting of Ibn Rushd and Ibn Arabi? Is that not, the more I reflect on that, the more it makes sense to me that they were not, as Ibn Rushd, he is so pleased when he asks Ibn Arabi that he just looks at him, doesn't even ask the question, but it's understood that do these, and he says, Na'am, that are they congruent, the paths? And then he says, La. And then he says, وَبَيْنَهُمَا تَطِيرُ الْأَرْوَاحِ. And between that yes and no, the souls are dissipated. Allah. I feel that's I've got a clip on that. Do watch that. Let me just see this one question, then I'll bring on some. I've got some. Adam, shukran, much love for the super chat. Can you discuss the characterization of objects and animals in Quran and Hadith? I'm not sure what characterization means here. What does characterization mean? Characterization of objects and animals. I don't understand that. So apologies, I don't get that. Right, so somebody says you missed my super chat. Desi X views on LGBTQ. I mean, I've got detailed videos, and look, it's things I've answered, that it's a way of life that people, if they have it, they have it. You don't need to go around. It's like Imam Malik when he was asked about incestuous marriages. Do we, where we have control over it, prevent them? Do we condemn them? Do we? He said no. He said, it's, if it's their way of life, it's their way of life. You just live your way of life. It's not, you don't need to go around condemning it. You don't need, if it's their way of life, it's their way of life. It's not. I don't know why there's so much noise and commotion about all of these things. I agree that there are certain things that I do agree on condemning, and that is the what I feel is an inappropriate exposure of young children to a kind of programming where they want to teach children that are so young, like 5 and 6, about sexuality, and they want to teach them about sexual intercourse, and they want to teach them. I find that grossly inappropriate, and I feel that kind of stuff should be condemned. Um, and I feel there's no harm. Look, if they want to say, people want to say, look, and in society, there are some people that live in this kind of a relationship, which is a homosexual relationship. Fine, if because that is the case, that is the reality in society. There are people who live like that. So if you say that to children, that's fine. But then I don't see why also it isn't, why people get so reactionary when we say, well, and in society, there are people who live in polygamous relationships as well. And people, in fact, I had a clip. It was an old clip. When I say old, as in it was definitely a few months, but it was just uploaded recently on polygamous relationships, and it triggered a certain amount of backlash almost. And I find that as well. I find that quite strange. That it doesn't mean that people need to do it, but it's just that, well, is since we are accepting every other paradigm of relationship in society, because this is, and if it's just at relationship level, I don't mean that the kind of exposure of the detail of sexuality to children is grossly inappropriate. But if you're simply just saying that, look, and in society there are certain people who are like this, okay, which is a reality, that's fine. But if you're trying to somehow indoctrinate them into becoming, into, like, you're trying to overly represent, trying to misrepresent all of this, then I feel that's wrong. These are just young children. Just leave them alone. Like, sure, when they, maybe in their final year of junior school, of primary school, and when they go into secondary school, teaching them that, fine, sure. I mean, that's like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old child. It's fine, you teaching details, but teaching details to a 5-year-old kid, I don't personally agree with that. I feel you're over. This is, to me, it's not right. I think just leave people. But at the same time, if you're teaching to condemn bigotry against homosexuality and to condemn, then that's fine. That's good, because this is true. There are people, homosexual people in society. There are people like this. So people, if they're teaching that, look, by the way, some people, they live with, let's say they may say some people live with 2 moms, or some people live with 2 dads, or some people, that is happening in reality. So fine, and that it's wrong to say things to people like this. It's wrong to kind of abuse or to try to persecute. This is wrong. Fine, of course, that's wrong categorically, to be abusing people or to be saying things to them. So this kind of stuff is all, if, but then I do think, well, these same societies that say that, then why is it that when we say, well, okay, what about the polygamous paradigm, and they find that so, oh no, that's like medieval. You think, well, why is that medieval? Like, why is that not a paradigm as well in saying, and in society there are also some people like this, but it's yeah, I don't know. So that's, but look, as far as the countries are concerned, these countries are not Muslim countries. This is a way of life that people have. And as Imam Malik said, they are entitled to their way of life. You don't get in, you do not condemn, you don't get involved and condemn them, saying you guys are so like, let people be. They're not getting involved in your life. So just let them be. That's what I say. That, and don't worry about sometimes some people get insecure thinking, oh my God, if maybe we're all going to turn homosexual, then relax. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. Okay. The world is not going to become just homosexual because some people are homosexual. It's okay, just so I think the homophobia needs to be got ridden of imminently and immediately. There should never be homophobia, never be this hatred. Because look at Imam Malik being asked, and let's be honest, that is something pretty disgusting on all fronts, incest. And you can understand how that would evoke a kind of immediate disgust in people. Clearly, even in this day and age in the West, it would clearly evoke disgust. But in fact, I'm pretty sure in the UK it's illegal, as in you'd go to prison. I'm sure. It's still. I think it's the law here. It's the law in many Western countries that you'd go to prison. Yet look how forward-thinking Imam Malik was when he's asked. He said that look, we don't get involved. Like if that's their way of life, like we have our way of life. They have the we don't. But look where they could have got involved because the Muslims had power. Still, no. He said, La ta'arid lahum. He said, no, don't. We don't. That's their way of life. That's, so cool. I hope that helps. Marx, no teachers are teaching sex to children. It's reactionary fear mongering. Sure, I hope that that's correct. I mean, I hope that's correct. See, I'm not, I was a teacher many years ago, almost a decade ago. I quit almost about a decade ago now. So prior to that, I was involved in schools, but I've not been for many years now. And I have heard from some people in some schools there has been. I have heard this. So Allahu A'lam. I'm not saying it's a blanket thing across all schools. In some, I heard that there was like they were going over and beyond. And this is why in Birmingham there was a huge reaction. And there were protests and all this, I think, a couple of years ago. And then they removed it from those schools in that way, because it wasn't, from what I heard, it wasn't just the teach. And then in other places, they're not. It is just fear mongering. So, yeah, I mean, people, the main, honestly, I think it's just so important to sometimes just detach from toxicity and negativity, just to kind of bring a calmness. A lot of it is this, this verse we said today, Innal insana khuliqa halu'a. This is insan. It doesn't even concern them so many times. Sometimes it may, but many a times it does. It's like you practice you. You do you. Let other people do them. Just Allah. Just breathe. We need to not be. It's difficult. It's our fitrah to be reactionary, but we need to try to control that. We need to try. Right. Rifi, shukran. Much love for the super chat. Rifi Johnston, may Allah bless you. Ameen. You do you. Right. Let me bring on some live guests, people. And we've got here. Okay, we've got Ashikur Rahman. All right, let me bring up Ashikur Rahman. Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum. Assalam.
Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome. Where are you joining us from?
Mufti, I'm joining from Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. Allah, Allah. Swagatam. All right.
I was in
So,
your Minecraft before. Sorry, meaning it now before.
say that again, sorry.
I was in your podcast before.
Oh, you were in the
About
podcast before?
John
Okay.
Elias, talking about John
Oh,
Elias.
yes, of course. My apologies. This last week I've not been that well, so I'm not 100% on point.
It
Forgive
was
me,
way
Shama.
before, Mufti. Way before.
No, I know, no, but I'm just saying. So this is why today, if I'm not sharp or on point, it's because of that. So yes, I do remember we spoke about John Elia and
Yeah.
his poetry. MashaAllah. How are you, by the way? How is Bangladesh? And were you from Dhaka? Was it?
Yes, Dhaka.
Yes. How is Dhaka right now?
Dhaka is great, but in Sylhet there is a huge flood.
Yeah, I heard about
So,
that. May Allah, we make dua, may Allah make things easy for everybody who's suffering, especially in Sylhet. I saw the flood. These things are incredibly, they're traumatic even as a witness. Even if you see something, because there's a sheer helplessness. Because
yeah.
I mean, obviously people can send aid and but in the moment there's there's nothing that can. May Allah help them, Ameen, and make things
But
easy for them.
what is amazing that this time the social media spread so much energy that many people came for content creators,
Allahu Akbar.
many people.
Yeah.
Madrasas were very helpful this time. They even
Okay.
organized 100 cows for this Eid al-Adha.
Islamic madrasas.
Yes.
Allahu Akbar. I'm so happy to hear that because
And
I've
everything
always
will be brought from Sylhet, so that the Sylhet
to
people
regenerate the.
yeah.
That's brilliant thinking. Brilliant. Allah bless it. Ameen. Because I always thought that institutions like madrasas should be. I know it's a difficult one because they're studying, but because they have thousands of people at their disposal and they have the ethos, they should, if possible, leap to the forefront when it comes to humanitarian. So if they can, where it's near enough, because it does so much, it changes the whole image as well of madrasas. Like now, I'm sure people must be like, "Wow, okay, these madrasas are, like they're really doing something."
The people are criticizing before that the mullahs didn't really approach really much when it comes to such kind of tragedies, but this time they are really being come forward.
I remember in the UK, a good few years ago, I can't remember now whether it was. I can't remember whether it was about 5-6 years, maybe more, but it was a few years ago. There was some flooding. I think it was in different regions, Gloucestershire and different parts of the UK, and several Islamic organizations, or at least a few, got to the forefront. Like they went there. So you had these people in their, shalwar kameez, in their jubbas. They're wearing the kind of, high vis stuff, and they were there giving aid. They were kind of helping to clear the water. They would do, and it really touched the heart of the people at that time, that you think, wow, okay, because let's be honest, people, they look at religious people, even in Bangladesh, they look at Mulvis and Mullahs as like, these people are a bit backwards, and when you see these people at the forefront doing actual humanitarian work, that just changes everything. It touches the heart, doesn't it? Touches, yeah. So Allahu Akbar. I'm really, honestly, really happy to hear that. MashaAllah. Yeah.
Mufti, I was here to ask you a question about
Sure, yeah.
a deep question.
A deep question.
Like, see,
this is
what is
here comes disaster. This is like I can hear yeah, go for it. Sure, that is welcome. I can. This is where I can hear that Morgan Freeman voice. That that was not a good idea, as he will come to learn in the future. Right. So, yep.
So, what is love, Mufti?
What is love? क्या बात है यार,
What is the essence of love
क्या
and
क्या
love?
बात.
Now, I was wondering that if love could be at its nature, can be experienced by personal level, or it should be experienced as a universal level. Like, is it possible to experience love at a personal level? And does it exist, love at a personal level?
Personal, you mean just restricted to the personal or to the
No,
other
just
as well?
between two person. Like, is it can be called as love, like tender emotions between
Allah.
each other?
Ashik, what a name, huh? Ashik, which means the lover, by the way, in Arabic. Ashik, gee, the question on our minds is, tell us what's her name? Oh, you nutty. You know,
The thought
love,
Mufti
Ashik.
arises from one of the videos. Do you know about Sadhguru?
Yes,
Uh,
yes, Sadhguru, of course, of course.
so, so he actually point out a thing that he says that love is something you can't really do, but you can become. And this really triggered a thought that, yeah, and what triggered me most that I watched a anime which is named Vinland Saga. So here the prince name was Canute.
Kanuj, okay.
And so there's a war going. So the prince was talking to a priest. So the prince asked the priest that what is love.
What is
The
love?
priest,
What is love? What is
the
love? I
priest
think
actually
somebody
said the
put that
love,
here.
the love is
Baby, don't
discrimination.
hurt me. Love is what? Discrimination.
Discrimination.
Oof. Hi, 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 hi.
So it's kind of like love is a kind of meter that indicates that someone is more than a priority than others.
Allah. हमारी बेखुदी का हाल वो पूछें तो एक आसित. That, you know, this word, by the way, this is an amazing word in Urdu, bekhudi. It is like being beyond or out of oneself, like being out of it. But if you say selfless, it means something else in English. But it's almost like not in a fully conscious state.
Yeah.
Bekhudi. Hamari
There's a poem of
bekhudi ka
Galib,
hal. Yeah.
बेखुदी
In,
बेसबब नहीं
yeah,
कुछ तो है
and
जिसकी
this
पर्दा
is
नहीं.
very linked to that bekhudi besabab nahi ghalib, kuch to hai jiski pardadari hai. That this kind of being out of it in this conscious state is not without a reason, Ghalib is saying. And here the poet says that bekhudi, hamari bekhudi ka hal wo पूछें तो एक आसिद, ये कहना होश इतना है कि तुमको याद करते हैं. Wow. So, see, the person says that he's telling his messenger, he's telling his qasid, is the one who the message takes the message. He says, if they ask about my this state where I'm out of it, my bekhudi ka hal, they ask about it, then tell them this much. Tell them that ye kehna ke hosh itna hai, that we have just about that much consciousness ke tumko yaad karte hain, that we
I
remember
remember.
Allah. See, that is the ish. That's the maqam that I can, the energy I can feel from you, Ashik G, Ashik
I actually come
Rahman.
across your video from John Elia.
Hmm.
So I searched some of John Elia's poems. So somehow your video popped up, and I
Oh,
say, a Mufti talking about John Elia, it should
John Elia
be
was a legend.
something great.
John Elia. You see, if you want to speak about ishq, I don't know if John Elia is going to, because John
No,
Elia
no,
is like from one
it's
of those.
harsh.
He's too. You know, his soul has been hurt. Allah.
जब बस में कुछ नहीं तो बेजार.
हाय 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 जब बस में कुछ नहीं तो फिर बेजार ही रहो. You know, he's so about love. the tenderness of love will be found with the likes of Mir, with
Dak
people
Dehlavi.
like Dag Dehlavi Sahib, kya baat hai. With Zouk, with even with people like I mean with loads, Momin Khan,
Ahmad
Momin
Faraz.
Ahmad Faraz, all these people.
Yeah,
He
Urdu
says
is
that
so great. I really underestimate it first. Like it
this
is so great,
Ghalib
greatly
said to
funny.
Momin Khan Momin once. He said that you could take all my diwan if you give me this
Yeah,
one poem of yours, and it's about love. He
yeah.
says that in it. He says, "Tu mere saath hota hai goya, jab
Or
koi
कोई
dusra nahi hota."
नहीं होता.
And and in one level, this could be understood about God, being
Yeah,
mindful of God, that when you are with me, that you are with me when nobody else is with me. And there's another, somebody had also kind of caught this message in that when I'm on my own, I'm never on my own, because when you're on your own, you're with the beloved Allah, Allah. And but Momin Khan Momin, in that same one, he has um he says, ek tum mere, what is it? He says that um
एक तुम हासिल
ek,
नहीं हुए.
he says ek tum mere kisi tarah na hue,
Yeah, yeah.
वरना दुनिया में क्या-क्या
क्या
नहीं
क्या
होता.
नहीं होता.
Allah. You see, on one hand, he says that this world is full of so much potential that anything can be achieved in this world. But then he says, but I could never have you. But yeah, besides that, what can't be achieved in this world?
Just you remained unachievable.
Allah, kya baat hai, huh? These
There is
people,
a poem of
honestly.
John Elia like है वो बेचारगी का हाल कि हम हर किसी को सलाम कर रहे हैं. That we are in such a state that whoever we meet, only we have is peace to give.
Yeah, it is amazing that you see when there is, because love, I think it's an amazing topic, because after consciousness, I think it is love that really then shows us it once again mysteriously guides us to God, because first consciousness, because it is totally like this, you can't even begin with conscious. Where do you begin?
Yeah,
And then after consciousness, love, because where do you begin with love? Like, how do you define it? The moment you try to define it, it's like you're trying to, it's how John Elia, he says कि खुशबू John Elia क्या करता है, खुशबू, what is it? He says खुशबू में रंग भरता है. Like he just puts color into perfume, fragrance. So meaning that you can't see it and you can't capture it, but if it was colored, you could at least see as it kind of dissipates, as it goes.
yeah,
Because is love just simply care? Is it just simply, but we know it's not, it's more than that.
yeah,
And it's enough to transform a person into a world where, if you think about it, look, it starts with the other, that with two people, they fuse together to create almost this kind of explosion, this atomic explosion of the soul, in which the rest of the world disappears. Dunya
yeah.
hai ya nahi hai, nobody cares.
तेरे
Whether the
शहर में
world.
होके हम बदनाम कितने शहरों में नेक नाम हुए.
Wow, 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 wow. It is so true.
Yes,
It
John
changes,
Elia.
everything. It changes,
Yeah,
it changes a person's outlook on life. They see, there's that poem where the person says, um, he says, कुछ कुछ इस अदा से आपने पूछा मेरा मिजाज, ये कहना पड़ा कि शुक्र है परवरदिगार का. It's like that you asked, how am I, in such a way that I had to say, all praise be to God. Look, but in a way, through the other, he remembered the divine,
yeah.
Allah. Wal mu'min mir'atul mu'min, that the believer is a mirror to the believer, a soul, in a way that you see that poem is tongue in cheek, like he's trying. It is a bit funny, but in the same on the same token, he's showing that the other, that the person
Yeah.
he loved, reminded him to remember God without even reminding him.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Mu'min
yeah,
is also one of the name of God.
yeah. Al Mu'min is the name of
It
God. Yes,
it puts so much layer to that statement also. The Mu'min,
it's
Ma'ratul Mu'min.
yeah, exactly. And this is where some people believe that Al Mu'min Mir'atul Mu'min, that a believer is a mirror of God. Some mystics took the hadith to mean that, because because that Al Mu'min is one of the names of God. So that it's
Yeah.
amazing. So you begin with this, you see, by knowing the other, you know yourself, you become more self-conscious, and maybe you know God i- to a slightly higher extent. It's
Yeah.
because you kind of forget, like it's one of those things that what doesn't it make a person do? There's that इश्क तेरे इश्क में ए यार हमने क्या क्या ना किया, sabr ayyub kiya, girya yaqub kiya. It's like that's that Dr. Suleiman Misbahi Saab reads that often, that what did we not do in your ishq, that we did the sabr of Ayyub and we did the crying of Yaqub alayhim assalam. Actually, oh my God, how can I not recite what Dr. Suleiman Misbahi Saab, may Allah bless him, always recites?
Please.
He says on this about love, where he says that हमारी बेवफाई पर भी वो इतना प्यार करते हैं, अगर हम बावफा होते तो क्या होते.
Yeah.
That he says that God loves us so much despite us being so disloyal to him. Like there's very few things are that wretchedly, like kamine, like the way insan is so disloyal. There's a proverb that if you found a starving dog and fed him and took care of him, and gave him shelter, he will not bite you. That is the principal difference between dog and man. That if you did that to man, he will bite you after a while. So insan is so disloyal that he says in this poem that हमारी बेवफाई पर भी वो इतना प्यार करते हैं, that God loves us to this extent despite us being so disloyal. If we were loyal, just imagine what it would have been. अगर हम बावफा होते तो क्या होते. And then he has this line where he says, this is the reply from God, that दिल तो क्या चीज है हम रूहों में उतरे होते. That what you talk about, the heart, we would have engulfed your soul. That दिल तो क्या चीज है हम रूहों में उतरे होते, तूने चाहा ही नहीं चाहने वालों की तरह. That this is, but you didn't
Ah,
love us the way somebody truly should have loved. That we would have, you're speaking simply about your heart,
ah,
we would have engulfed your entire soul. But if only you loved us as one ought to love.
if
But
only.
insan, huh? Halua. This is insan doesn't innal insana khuliqa halua. This is, but wow, what a topic, yaar, and what a name to go with the topic. Ashikur Rahman. I love it. I love it. How old are you, Ashik Ji?
I'm 21. I will hit
Wow.
20.
You're going to be 22. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Very young. This is the age. Yeah, all the ishq vishq ho raha hai. Naya naya ishq hai, naya naya junoon hai. It's a this is a new passion. So people, but Ashik G, it's been epic sharing these thoughts with you and these emotions. So shukran for joining us. I'll take on one, two other
Yeah.
live guests and then I'll wrap this up today.
Yeah.
So shukran. Do
Thank you,
drop me a
Mufti,
message
for it.
on
Yeah.
Instagram as well, and I'll look out for your page always.
And I'll end with the poem of John Elia.
Of course. Irshad, Irshad.
इतना खाली था अंदरू मेरा कुछ दिन तो खुदा रहा मुझमें.
हाय हाय कुछ दिन तो खुदा रहा मुझ में. John Elia, Hazrat John Elia. You know, for those, that's a very profound poem, and that needs a whole session to explain it to people.
Yeah.
But that was, John, he had a journey where he had a very interesting relationship with God.
Yeah.
And it's full, it's in his poetry, and it was, I feel that it shows he had a relationship with God. Some people try to feel, they say, no, he didn't believe in God. That's why he spoke like this. But I think it's almost the opposite. That sometimes
Yeah.
you speak in a way when you feel you have that kind of a relationship. I can go to that
Like
extent.
you have gained the audacity to raise
Yeah.
some of those questions.
Like there's some children who they this is, I'm not trying to analogize this onto God, but on this nature of relationships, that, for example, parents would, they'll tell them off, and there may be that one child that just doesn't care. Like he'll, it's like my Zozo. It doesn't matter how angry, I don't get angry so easily, but if I did, she'll just still, does not matter. The audacity, she'll, right?
Yeah.
You stop, right? Stop. And some people just have a relationship like that. And but that's a whole different discussion for another
Yeah.
day. Ye kahani phir sahi. We'll have to discuss that
Inshallah.
another day.
Inshallah.
Take very good care of yourself, Ashik
Take
Ji.
care, Mufti.
Allah bless you. Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum.
People, that was Ashikur Rahman. See, the true lover of Rahman. That's what the name means. From Dhaka, Bangladesh. All right, people. So, and a very interesting discussion on what is love. He's going to hit 22. All right. The poem of Anu Agarwal. Doing explosion. Doing the deed. They're Chalo yaar, we'll have to have a session someday just on what is love, huh? But let's bring in some guests. Whoa, see, feeling a bit, I think I need to rest now. We've got Lucy Wynne-Jones. All right, Lucy, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me? This is why I'm pointing towards my ears.
I can, loud and clear. Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome.
Great.
How are you?
So, yeah, I'm fine, thanks. I was just before your video came on, I was busy preparing some slides teaching JavaScript. And
okay, wow.
That's a programming language, just for those who don't know. But I know, like,
is that what? So you're teaching programming?
Yeah, I teach programming across the ages. My youngest student was 9, so
no way. Okay.
So I've taught across the age groups. And
is it quite relatively simple to learn? Is it, or is it something complex? And I'm not thinking for myself. I'm thinking thinking more so for my kids. I'm thinking more so for Layla. I think it's beyond me now.
I know, like, one of my top students was a very introverted person and had a good attention to detail. So it does depend from student to student. And
I like how you brought that point in straight away. So basically, if she can't keep focused, I'll because
one of my students had ADHD traits and managed to be okay.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, okay. I mean, it's interesting. You know what? I'll explore the thought. But
yeah.
So how have things been?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just screen sharing. So I'd like to screen share this.
Okay. If you
can you see the screen there?
I can't. Oh, right. Wait there. No, no. I can't. Oh, wait there. Here. Sorry. Let me add this. Oh, it lets us add it here. Okay. I've brought it up. Are you what? Are you bursting for your first criminal record? Okay. I don't know what we're about to share here, people. I want to apologize. Okay.
Yeah, this is the kind
This
of
is like a deja vu moment going on. For those who know, this is right. Okay, so what are we about to share here? Come on then, let's
Okay, this is an example of a website I did in under 10 minutes, searching the image as well, just before a lesson with one of my students, because I like to demonstrate what I can do website-wise before
okay.
lessons and get my student to demonstrate their work as well. But yeah, so this is a joke about Partygate. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, does it do anything else, the page, or is it static, or does it have any other features? Life's too short, why not have some fun? Yeah, people.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't really have many other features. It's just simple HTML.
Okay, so
As you can tell there,
okay.
it says .html, but yeah, this is all complex web stuff. But yeah, I'll just end my screen share. And speaking of
Sure.
the internet and stuff, I did type in the chat here that I'd like to discuss like social media echo chambers, because social media wants to get you engaged as much as possible with its content. So what's happened is, like in America, for example, and yeah, in the UK we tend to hear about news from America because of it being an English-speaking country more so than we've heard about EU politics and other sorts of politics near
But
home.
also because America is where it's happening, where it's because of the position that it's held globally, and so it's America. It's it's not just, even if let's say hypothetically Italy spoke English or Spain spoke English, hypothetically, the news would still be all about America, because that's it's the point of direction.
Yeah, and I know like what the problem is like the left and right in America has become increasingly divided,
Polarized,
and I know like in a parallel in British politics is like the age between the different age groups is like the older age group have tended to support the Conservatives. Yeah, this is my right hand, so I'll do this for the Conservative Party, whereas the young group have tended to support the Labour. And it's just like politics in both the United States and the UK has been more divided than ever before. And with the way that social media works, sometimes young people are not engaging with old people. Sometimes in America, for example, the right is not engaging with the left, and people are going into echo chambers, so they rarely get exposed to other perspectives, and they rarely get the chance to have proper debates. And I do find like just people I encounter on social media in general, sometimes if you want to talk politics and stuff, a lot of people do resort to what's called an ad hominem attack, which is invalid when debating, because I know like when you debate somebody, you're meant to disagree with the argument, you're not meant to condemn the person. And it's just like the prophets, peace be upon them, they went through a lot of ad hominem attacks, like being called Majnoon, magicians, and other derogatory names. And Majnoon in Arabic means delusional, as in not right in the head. So yeah, so I'll just let Mufti speak.
Oh, no. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's interesting that, you see, with the way algorithms and all these things work, I get it. It's from a marketing perspective that they target more and more traffic towards you based on your likes and preferences. And that is understandable from a marketing perspective. But what it's also doing is further deepening and solidifying these echo chambers, because then to you it seems that the whole world is just going on about this, because every time that's what your news feeds, that's what the YouTube brings to you, and you think, well, everybody must be talking about. So let's say you just started looking up, I don't know, let's say a particular issue, and you started researching it, and now everything, it'll just start bringing more and more traffic your way, and that thing will become like the world, and you'll also falsely assume that the whole world is also as engaged in this topic as you, because every time you open YouTube, the videos are about that. Every time you open Facebook, it's about, and there's live people with different people with videos, and so you're thinking, wow, this is so, it's so from that side you can, the concerns on the polarization, but also solidifying those echo chambers and taking people more and more in, because look, in all honesty, I do feel that, look, ultimately it's not just I feel that, look, this is how it is. There is no categorical good and bad in that sense. It's not like people on this side are pure evil and people on this side are pure goodness. It's not like that. I mean, people are just people. You will find people that are amazing people everywhere. It doesn't matter whether they're left or right, or it doesn't matter whether they, whatever direction, whatever kind of party that they ascribe to, you'll find goodness in them. You'll find the same kind of kind-heartedness. But it's being, you see, it's this kind of, it's not just the polarization, it's the otherization, the othering, the kind of like, oh, those people are, pitting people against people. This is worrying as well, because it just becomes any kind of, any kind of hate and toxicity. It's such a powerful emotion to play off of, that is hate, because it's so powerful. We had this, we covered in one of our book clubs, there was what was his name, William Hazlitt. He had this quote where he said that love with a little, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it wholeheartedly, but you can see some kind of the truthfulness about it, that he said love with a little indulgence gives way to indifference, or even like indifference or even disgust. But he says hatred alone is immortal. That, like, what he's trying to say is that, you see, you can love someone, but you can become fed up with them, and you can become whatever, and you can question yourself whether you truly love them. But if you hate someone, he was trying to say, well, hatred is pure and immortal. it's like, okay, he sounds like he sounds fun, but the
Yeah, and
point
also
is,
the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that you're supposed to love moderately and hate moderately. So do not love somebody excessively because they might become your enemy, and do not hate somebody excessively because they might become your friend. So I know, like, Umar and Abu Sufyan, they eventually joined the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
they did, yes, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So
Yeah,
it's
they
just
did, yeah.
like that piece of wisdom goes a long way, because I know, like, kind of, I have got myself into one fishy relationship. Don't want to talk about the ins and outs of it, but where somebody did excessively love me. It wasn't a romantic relationship, it was a platonic friendship relationship, and it's just like it got overboard. And that's one reason why, when
it's the first time I'm hearing of platonic relationships going overboard.
yeah, but it's just like,
they became
I know
obsessed platonically. Yeah, you're my really good friend.
yeah, I know, like, it was more than that, because I know, like, it was with somebody who was older than me, so she viewed me as a daughter, which was a bit awkward. But yeah, I know that has taught me the hard way that Hadith.
It's strange because I think as well, emotions are so interesting, because really a lot of our interactions are determined by our emotions, but we may rationalize them and think they're actually based on reason and rationale, and emotions are not things that we get taught how to control, generally speaking, and hopefully along the way we've kind of managed to have a grip of them, but some people don't, and they don't know how to, they get carried, they get obsessive, they get weird, and that's true, because they've just not understood boundaries, not understood parameters, not understood how to handle And very much like this verse we were speaking about earlier on today, this innal insana khuliqa halu'a, the insan is created agitated, created in this state of volatility, just not, almost like just not calm, still, and stable. That's a goal they have to get towards. They don't just made that way. But yeah.
Yeah,
So
and also I know like there's this Christian I know who I've met through social media platforms, and I know like she was telling me that there was some Muslim trying to proselytize to her or give her dawah, and
okay.
I just know like I told her that as we're friends and stuff, like we know each other on other sorts of levels, but I know, like I mentioned to her, like, yes, there's some Muslims out there that do unfortunately go into dawah internet rabbit holes whereby they think that,
Mm,
and I know, like, some people who sometimes when some people give dawah, they do so in an aggressive, forceful manner. And
mm,
I can speak from experience as I used to be non-Muslim and stuff, that's like the least effective form of dawah, not the, but yeah.
mm. Well, no, absolutely, absolutely. You're very right. And yeah, I think, in the past as well, people had um, misunderstood something I'd said about da'wah. And it was, you see, I was saying that there is an unhealthy obsession with da'wah. And it's almost become a number crunching obsession to almost like a members club. We need more and more Muslims. I've converted 5. How many of you converted? 10. He's converted 15. We've converted. I get 1 convert every week. And this is not. You see, to me, this is not what the faith was about. It wasn't a numbers game. It's a huge journey. If somebody embraces Islam, like, wow, like what that's a huge journey ahead of them. Who is
Yeah.
there for them with this journey? Who is going to help them? Who's going to guide them? It's not, because if we're just going to, because what happens sometimes, these converts can get caught up in these echo chambers, like you said, of sectarianism, or those people are all deviants, those people are all deviants. And this is just poison. It's like you've rescued a dying person from a desert, dying with thirst, and you're giving him poison as a drink. It's
Yeah.
like, this is, I mean, as an analogy. So it is a shame. And then what happens, many of these people, then they, within maybe a year or two, abandon the faith, and they unfortunately, suffer psychological kind of breakdowns, and sometimes go into psychological disorders, because what happens is this, the sheer isolation and abandonment, because many of these people, when they embrace, sometimes they're told to cut off all your family, and so they already cut their own family off, and then they just have a little hub, and then that hub dictates to them that these people are like this. And if they start to question the people, then they themselves in turn get abandoned, and then they don't have anyone. So it's very terrifying. And so this is why I had said in the past that, look, I think that really we need to be more concerned, as believers, we need to be more concerned with our own self, our ego, with our state. Let's work on us. Don't worry about other people. Will see you, and the fruits that they see will draw them to the light that you beam. It will guide them. But you see, if you're just simply trying to win them rationally, let them see that, wow, what an amazing human. Why are these people so positive? Imagine they think, why are Muslims so positive? Why are they always smiling? What's their secret? I want to know what their secret is. I want a bit of that. So
Yeah. I also
that
know,
would
like,
be,
as you were
yeah.
saying, that some converts get isolated from their families and the previous social networks they've had, like as in friends, family, etc. I am thinking that that's a trait of a narcissist to want to socially isolate people and
Yeah.
um, want to cut them off from their family. And I remember when I heard from a Hindu I know that, oh, in Pakistan there's some feudal lords doing bad stuff to the Hindu minority there, and they're like trying to get some Hindu girls to convert to Islam, and then they cut them off from their families, but their families still want to maintain contact with them. I was saying, like, this goes against Islam, because anyone who knows a thing or two about Islam knows that we're not allowed to cut ties with our family. And also and the reason why we keep family ties is because, as you were mentioning earlier about the Zoroastrians and stuff, they used to practice incest. Is like, in Islam, incest is haram, so the way we prevent incest from happening is by knowing who you're related to and how you're related to them and who your direct mahrams are. These are
and
people who are
it's
related.
fascinating. There's a discussion by the great Maliki legend of the 20th century, Ibn Ashur, who was one of the great mujtahideen of the last century. And just for people who don't know, I mean, his tafsir is in 30 volumes, and he was the great sheikh of Zaytuna in Tunis, and huge. Everybody respects him, regardless of sectarian denominational background. He has a discussion on the kind of duties towards parents, and he speaks about people who've converted, and he says that what if their parents need money, because let's say they're short on money, but they need money to buy alcohol. and he speaks about that it is still the child's duty to provide for them. Now, people may disagree with his ruling. I'm not saying, you see, I'm just trying to show the diversity of thought in Islam. I'm not trying to say, you may say, well, I think that's wrong. Fine. But this, it's not just anybody. It's somebody incredibly trained in Islam. And he's saying that, look, because these people are not Muslim, so they are not mukhatabun bi furu'i sharia, that alcohol is not haram for non-Muslims. It's only haram for Muslims. So they are just doing something which in their way of life is permissible. So you are not here to impose Islam on them. You as a child, if they need money, he was saying that, and you have it, then it's your duty to help them. Regardless if in your way of life, what they're going to spend it on is haram. So this to me, even if people disagree with it, look, I respect that people can disagree with it. That's their, they're entitled. I respect that for, that's their opinion. But what we have to respect here is the length at which these great ulama are discussing this, to show the sense of, like you mentioned, the bond of relationship with your parents, with your family, regardless of faith, and regardless of, to the extent that you may not even stand for something, but they do, but it's their way of life, and you're still seeing your duty. It's amazing. It's so profound. Lucy, shukran. I think I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm just going to take on 1-2 other people and then wrap this up. So
thank you very much for your time, and anyone can
welcome.
Contact me on Instagram. I've left, I'll inshallah, I'll leave my Instagram link on the YouTube comment section.
Sure, do that. And it is just, it's like your name, isn't it? It's spelt like that, Lucy Wynne-Jones,
with the hyphen. And I know, like, my Instagram hashtag is just all my name lowercase with no spaces and no hyphen.
I think it'll be like the only name like that. I don't think there'll be another. I think it'll be incredibly unique.
If anyone's interested in learning website development or that sort of aspect of coding, as there's many aspects of coding. But thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum.
You're very welcome. Alaikum salam. Lucy, take care. Right, people, that was Lucy Wynne-Jones. And if you are interested in computer programming and learning script, then definitely reach out to Lucy on Instagram. Guys, somebody said, if a few beers calms my dad's, let him be calm. Dawah, dude, Mufti, shukran, much love. May Allah bless you. Look, I want to say just very briefly, and then I've got some guests. I'll try to bring them on just very quickly. That look, it's okay that there are opinions or views that we don't agree with. It's okay. It's okay that there are opinions that we may think are wrong, but they exist. It's okay, and we should. I see this honestly as an amazing, just such a beautiful strength to Islam, that it has such diversity, and that we can celebrate that. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to agree with it. That's the hallmark of intellectual civilization, to be able to entertain an idea without agreeing with it. So, and we need to move away from this thing of, well, if I don't know this, and sometimes I see, people sometimes send me clips of, oh, look, somebody's answering a question like this, and somebody's answering, and I try not to. Yeah. See, what I would say is that, look, if you're being, I don't know, because maybe sometimes I see that maybe some of these imams and scholars, either they are unaware of the differences of opinion, or if they are aware, then I, I don't know why they are stating that there's no difference of opinion on the matter. I mean, maybe, look, maybe they're trying to come from a position of goodness. But it appears, Allahu A'lam, it appears that they just haven't come across the differences. They just haven't read them. And maybe it's been so commonly taught to them in a particular way. And that we all need to learn. We all need to, we all need to keep growing. Okay. So sometimes, like in that hadith of love in moderation and dislike in moderation, because things may be different someday. And so similarly, especially when we're in positions of giving any guidance on a matter, try to look into differences. And even if you don't support them, maybe just state what those differences are. And you could say, look, some people have said this based on this, and okay, we don't support that, or we don't believe in that view, or we don't go with that, but we go with this. It's this false yaqeen that is being sold, this false certainty and certitude, and it's not there, because in fiqh it is so diverse, so many views. You hear things, and it's just sad when you see stuff, because you think, well, how can you be unaware of this? Or it just reflects the fact that you're unaware of this. And it can be all sorts of questions, all sorts, honestly, from faith to right into worship. And I saw this question on somebody was being asked, or praying with the hands at the side. And and this sheikh said, he said, well, we know what the sunnah from the Nabiul Kareem is. That's to fold your arms. And we ask these people, we don't, we understand you're saying it's Imam Malik, but where in the sunnah does it say, Ya Akhi al-Kareem? I would love for these people to have a discussion with me. Islam is so vast. Let's just take for a moment this discussion, very momentarily. I don't want to expand too much on it. What is the ruling of holding your hands or folding your hands in Salah? If you say sunnah, then if one doesn't do it, shouldn't they do sujood al-sahw? Nobody has ever said that you do sujood al-sahw for not folding your arms. Nobody. Classical in Islam. In fact, this is why they don't consider this from the emphasized or from the emphasized sunnah in Salah. Because there is not even one sarih hadith on where to place your hands in prayer. Not even a single sarih hadith. It must be clear and it must be sahih. Not even one. Now look at that. That's such a, wake-up pill. Because everybody would have been told, what do you mean? I'm sure there must be so many. There isn't even one. Check it out. Every single hadith on where to place the hands in prayer is either weak or it's ambiguous. It's not clear. So if you're going to look in Bukhari, it does not say the Prophet ﷺ told him. Some person said, Umirna, we were commanded to do this. Who commanded you? Now they may say, well, that's obvious. It's the Prophet. It's not so obvious. It's not necessarily obvious. And if you are commanded, then surely it must be from the wajibat or the sunan of Salah. And if it's from the sunan of Salah, surely if you miss it out, you should do sujood al-sahw. Why does no madhab say you should do sujood al-sahw? You take the other hadith in Bukhari, and he's saying about placing the hands on the hand. But then what does the Rawi say? The Rawi says, I believe he's talking, I believe he's referring this back to the Prophet. As in, he says, Wala illa in yunma, that is directed, as in it is assumed, that it is like assumed that we're talking about the Prophet here. Even Ibn Hajar says that had he not said that, the hadith would have been okay. But now it's like, well, why is he having doubts? Why is the person narrating the hadith saying it's most probably the Prophet we're talking about here, that the guidance is going back to? It's not sarih, it's not clear. Something as simple as where to place your hands should have been clear. Why do the other ahadith say that when you do takbir, every limb went back to its resting place? What is the natural resting place if you're standing up and your hands are just, where should the resting place be? So it's interesting, you see. Now you take something like this, let alone the fact that almost every madhab had the opinion of holding the hands at the side. Sadl. It's clearly the Maliki madhab. It's in the Hanbali madhab. I believe it may be from the Qawl Qadim amongst the Shafi'iyya, but it's in the Hanbali madhab. It was the madhab of Awza'i, it was the madhab of Sa'id ibn Musayyib, it was the madhab of Sa'id ibn Jubayr, it was the madhab of Hassan al-Basri, it was the madhab of Layth ibn Sa'ad, it was the madhab of, how are all of these people not knowing Islam? And there's an epistemological, so there's a discussion on this. First of all, there is no single Sahih Hadith on where to fold the hands in prayer. Not a single Sahih Hadith. That's why it's not from the clear Sunnah in Salah to fold your arms. It's recommended. Or they may say it's a lesser Sunnah. Then you have a discussion on epistemology. How is it that you think people learnt Islam? You think they learnt Islam from Sahih Bukhari, from Abu Dawud, who come 250 years after the Prophet? They learnt Islam through the living tradition. Fiqh precedes the documentation of fiqh. The living sunnah The living tradition precedes the documentation and the efforts of the muhaddithin. The muhaddithin project doesn't come into effect until centuries after Islam. Fiqh was already documented. Imam Malik in his time, his Mudawwana alone has over 30,000 fatwa documented. In his time, Abu Hanifa's Zahir al-Riwayah has 100,000 masail documented. The fiqh precedes hadith. The fiqh is sunnah. Sunnah precedes hadith. I understand this, those scholars who do not make that distinction between hadith and sunnah. But then you need to, one needs to highlight this in a discussion. One needs to say that, look, there are those ulama who draw this distinction because they are the early ulama of Islam. Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa. That is the Maliki madhab and the Hanafi madhab combined is probably what? 70% of all Sunni Islam today on the world, on the globe. That's the Maliki madhab and the Hanafi madhab, and the Maliki madhab is like 3/4 almost of entire Sunni. At least you're talking, it is between 2/3 to 3/4 of entire Sunni Islam on the globe today. That's not like a small, that is a huge proportion. It is the overwhelming majority of Sunni Islam on the globe today. So if you're looking at most of Asia, Central Asia, and all that part of the globe, you can see behind me, all the Central Asia and all those populated countries are Hanafi in fiqh. And if you're looking at Maliki, most of Islam in Africa is Maliki. And then you've just got the Middle East. And there you've got some Hanafi, like Iraq, and you've got some Shafi'i, but still Iraq would still probably be, plentiful Hanafi madhab. And then you've just got Jordan, Syria, and these small countries, and you're going to have some Shafi'i. In Egypt, you'll have a mixture of Shafi'i, probably predominantly in Egypt, but then you'll still have Hanafi, you'll have Maliki in Lower Egypt. You're going, in the Sa'id and those places. So it's still looking at the majority of the entire Muslim world. This is how they understand Islam, that they understand Hadith and Sunnah not to be the same. But whether they know it or not, but their books teach this. So it's a big thing. These things cannot be just, it's not important. It's very important. But yeah, I digress. We'll discuss that another day. All right, so right now, we've got Zubair Ahmed who's been waiting very patiently. Let me add Zubair ji. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, Mufti. Can you hear me?
I can. Where are you joining us from, Zubair?
From your beloved country, Bahrain, Kingdom of Bahrain.
Of Bahrain?
Yes.
Allah, Bahrain. Allah. Kya baat hai, Zubair ji.
Actually, we have talked, few times on this Instagram. What your audio notes I shared with you sometimes. Maybe you recall.
Okay. Of course.
About different topics. And I followed.
Yes, your name on there is Zubair as well.
Yes, Zubair Ahmed.
Yes, of
I'm
course.
from Pakistan.
Yes. No, we've shared like several things. I've not seen you before. This is the first time I'm seeing you.
Yes.
So I didn't put two and two together. So okay, yes, of course. Zubair ji.
Yes. It's very nice to see you on face to face as well.
Likewise, tasharraf.
Actually, my beginning is like I was a very a regular practicing Muslim back in I think around 2000. Then I got caught up with the communism, Tehreek, some Tehreek movement was there in Pakistan. So I got caught up with the communist gang. So they threw out some argument that the Islam is like nothing, there is no God or something like that. Then I went back to our Maulana Sahib in the masjid, and he said that I have done falsafa and all these things. When I asked this question that I want to convert these guys into Muslims, so this Maulana Sahib said that I am coming back. He is going for the prayers. So the friends who took me to the Maulana Sahib, they told my friend that this guy is wajibul qatl. Done.
What?
So this guy is wajibul qatl. That you should kill this guy. He's a menace for the society. So after that, I left Islam, everything. I became an atheist. But still, something is inside me, like, it was telling me that this pattern in the nature, like, we eat apples from the tree, it comes again. So there is a intelligence behind it. So I think I became agnostic, and after that, and I found yourself in some way. I was on my journey. It coincided, and you have transformed my journey in a different way. Now I think you are
souls
taking us.
are connected.
Yes,
ये
yes.
रूहों का एक इत्तिसाल है आपस में.
जी, जी, जी. So you are taking our souls on that level as well. So I just wanted to discuss, something yesterday happened to me. Like, when actually I am being transferred from my side project to the head office. So I spent there 3 years almost. So yesterday I received a call from the head office that MD wants to see. So when I sat in the car and started the car, my heart started, heartbeat, like a upbeat, like something like worrisome or something like that. घबराहट सी हुई इस तरह. So I was thinking that why my heart is like doing this, because whenever you are meeting some higher person or some interview, so your heart will start beating, right? So that was the thing. But I realized that I am seeing it from outside, that this head is making this heart to beat, that something worse is going to happen. So that was one thing. But in the evening, and I clearly see that this is only the body matter. This head is having some data and analyzing and expecting some threat or danger, and this making this heart beat harder, that something going wrong is going to happen. But in the evening, as I was leaving the colleague for the last time, I saw that there was a sadness in my soul while leaving. It was not bodily thing. So I'm just wondering, this emotions, even our souls are prone to emotions, or only the bodily thing. So what are your thoughts about? I don't know if I could make myself clear or not.
Right. Okay. When you say the souls are prone to emotion, I'm not so sure if emotion, for example, is the better word, but that they. Do you mean in the sense that they sometimes we find ourselves driven by almost the soul, or we find it yearning, that it has like an anxiousness to it, like that, in that sense?
You see, if you feel angry, like if you see someone doing something, you are feeling angry. This anger is purely your bodily thing, because you are tuned something in your head that this thing is wrong. So you are getting angry because it is against your brain. But when you are connected at soul level and you are departing from that soul level, it is not something which is in your head. It is your soul which is being departed from your loved one. So that is something. I think this question is real deep, but I'm not able to.
I believe that. Look, we connect with certain people with our souls. I mean, just the very popular hadith that al-arwah junudun mujannada, that the souls are kind of banded together in certain ways, that ma ta'arafa minha talafat, those that and they come to know. Now, it doesn't explain how they come to know, but those that come to know harmonize. Now, there's some discussions by certain people today. You've got certain scientists, certain leading kind of mathematicians and thinkers of the world, like Sir Roger Penrose and other people as well. There's Stuart Hameroff. They have some very interesting discussions on, you see, consciousness, which I believe is a synonym, it's of the ruh, of the soul. Now, they argue that could it be that certain bonds that we create are through entanglement at a quantum level? So when you are very close to someone, something has connected. Now, how does it connect? Now, one suggestion has been it's connected through either physical or through the eyes, that there's something that connects. Now, you see family members, for example, or people who are very close to each other. There's several studies on, they just know when something's happening. Like, they don't know what's happening. So, for example, something tragic has happened, and the mother gets this anxiety all of a sudden, and she doesn't know what's happened, but she feels something's wrong, and she'll find her children, and something would have happened. This kind of stuff, there's several studies, there's actually scientific studies done on this, where they're trying to, they can't fully explain it, but the phenomenon exists. So they see that there is this kind of bond. They don't know how the bond is made, but they know that this is happening. I've shared on a few occasions the anecdotes of this one case where this brother who commits suicide, and the day that his brother commits suicide, the other brother, who's under kind of 24-hour supervision in a psychiatric kind of unit, who's always very calm and very very friendly, and does not have, completely out of character on that day, gets up and he kind of has this and he breaks the mirror. He kind of hits this mirror and breaks it, and he's kind of frustrated, and he doesn't know that his brother's killed himself, but he only comes to find out later on, like weeks later, that his brother had committed suicide, and the nurses are quite amused at they can't understand that it's that date that he acted out of character, and he has this whole but there's so many stories like this where people feel this angst, they feel and this is we would, in faith terms, we would say that is the connection of the arwah, that the ruh are connected. Now, in a more, let's say, we can use the word consciousness as well, that consciousness is connected. But yeah, I definitely, this is undeniable. Just because we can't fully explain it yet doesn't mean that we all feel it. We all feel it. It's impossible to deny that we don't feel that we have a bond with certain people.
Yes. Actually,
Yeah.
I felt both things. In the morning, I felt this, the uneasiness of the mind, which was created by the mind with the prior memories. But in the evening, I felt the soul level departing, or some sadness in my soul. I could, because I can see my things. If I'm angry, I can get out of my anger and see from this view that why I am getting angry. So I can go out of my body or something, just for a brief moment, not that. And one more thing, I wanted to, ask you about that. Not ask you, but the opinion that we are created from the Almighty in this world, and then we are given opportunity to create ourselves as well. Because if I see my being that is beyond my body, if I take it out in my hand like this, I don't know. Yes. So I take it out in my hand, I can see my being, how transparent it is, how how selfish, how jealous, how full of anger, full of hatred it is, or how. So I is in my control how I create my being. So it is very, I see that I am creating myself as I go along in this
And
bodily life.
in many ways, we're constantly recreating ourselves right throughout our lives. And
Yes.
there's a deeper inner self, or there's something in there that is always, we carry forward with us almost this inner child that is still, it's there, and I guess it takes a lifetime to truly get to know even yourself. This is why know thyself is such a profound concept, and arguably it's the concept that leads you to knowing God. Man arafa nafsa arafa rabba, whoever truly knew himself or herself knew their Lord. So it's, yeah. Very profound things. So shukran, Zubairji, for sharing
And
them
one
with
last
us.
thing, is that whenever I go out for a walk, or I go out for a walk, after 1 hour every evening. And previously I was going to gym as well, so I am
Okay.
always struggling with my weight. So I'm just thinking that whenever I am in physical activity intense, I get this metaphysical thoughts or downloads that's of profound nature. So what are your thoughts about it? When we are
No,
engaging in
absolutely.
gym or
No,
something,
absolutely. Yeah,
there is
because this is
otherwise we don't get it.
no, because absolutely, because these are called peak states. Some people call them a state of flow. That you see the way consciousness works, you don't you see that there's so many, because there's layers to it. There's layers of awareness, sensation, perception, but you get into such a like a maqam that you enter a state of, some people call, like Maslow, the person Maslow's hierarchy, he would call them peak states. Some people call them a state of flow. People in sport do it today. They enter this state of flow, like they're not even, and if they were to try to become conscious, it would ruin it. And this is why people like Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, they state that sports today are akin to some sports, or playing them in a certain way is akin to kind of secular worship, because it takes people into these kind of peak states that they can't normally get into, this altered state of consciousness. Almost, it is an altered state of consciousness. So you're right, 100%. When you're in that moment and you go into this state, and this, it's like how people, like they say in Urdu, Ahmed aa rahi hai phir.
Yeah,
There's
yeah, yeah. How much?
this
How much
sense of,
होती
you
है ये?
start getting this Ahmed hoti hai, and this incoming thing, and this is it. It's a state of flow, and you get, your thought becomes HD. It becomes so high resolution. You become like, you're proper like connected in that moment. It is no short of a spiritual state, even though
Yes.
the action you're doing may not be so-called spiritual. You might just be doing sports or running, or you might be doing but the experience is a spiritual experience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes,
So it
and
is definitely, yeah.
this guy David Goggins. Do you know
Yes,
him?
yes, yes, yeah.
David
David
Goggins.
Hawkins. Yeah, yeah. Very, very, very
He
well known. Yeah.
he has he's saying that we are not utilizing our full potential because he has
Mm.
gone through some struggles. And last thing, I just want you to have Mr. Bernardo Kastrup on your show. He's from Netherlands, and he has a good theory that we are living inside the mind of the God. So he has like, so if
Okay.
you
I
know
mean,
him, then
okay, send me his details and ask him. If you know him, if you can ask him if he's interested, and then send me the details on Instagram, and I will, inshallah, reach out and connect with him. But
okay,
okay,
okay.
I appreciate it, Zubairji. Shukran, much love for that. May Allah bless your journey and bless your day. Ameen. Salaam alaikum. People, that was Zubair. Very interesting discussion. And, I would like to say as well that, look, be right. I've just clicked on something here. Right. Be gentle with people. Everybody is fighting a difficult struggle. They're not, everybody's, look, each in their own time at their own pace. Don't, people might come to you sometimes and they're struggling with faith. They're struggling with it because they are taking it seriously. Like, if they didn't even care about it, they wouldn't struggle with it. They would just be like, well, who cares about this? The reason it's bothering them is because it holds value for them. If nothing, at least appreciate that. And then it's a journey. It's, look how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam just always kept those steps with people, that it's okay. It's okay. Maybe this is they could be now in chapter 4 of their lives, and maybe in chapter 8 or chapter 9, something eventful is to come to fruition with their iman. You don't know. It's like, look at some of the greatest people in Islam. Look at Khalid bin Walid. radiallahu anhu. Look at Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. If this Khalid bin Walid fighting against the Muslims, and yet the Prophet's his welcoming nature towards Khalid bin Walid was to result in one day him being one of the greatest generals that the Muslims would have ever known in history, human history. He's definitely like in the top 5 generals of all time human history. Umar ibn al-Khattab, all these people, I mean, there's so many people. But if you were to judge them or to scare them away or to hate on them, see, this is really, when you hate something, it's like Carl Jung saying that when you hate something about someone, that just tells you more about yourself. Because really what you hate on somebody else is often a reflection of something you see in you. Yeah. Yeah, there's be ruthless with systems, be kind to people. I mean, that is such a true thing, not like just be, don't hate on people. Don't be, that, it's that same thing in the insana khuliqa halu'a. Be gentle. It really, what has changed the course of human civilization often, what has changed the minds and hearts of people has always been gentleness. It's never been rigor and force, and not the hearts and mind. Right, we've got people. We do have to wrap this up. We've got 2 people waiting here. Let's have a quick little chat. We've got Musleh. Let's say Assalamu alaikum, Musleh.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you doing? Alaikum
Alhamdulillah.
assalam.
How are you doing, Mufti Sahab?
I'm good. Where are you joining us from, Musleh?
From Toronto, Canada.
Yes, Toronto, of course. So we've had you before.
Yes. I've communicated with you a couple of times.
Yeah. How are you keeping? And
Alhamdulillah.
share your glorious thoughts with us.
Actually, I was listening to you, and you were talking about hadith. You said that there is no sarih hadith about the hands.
Sarih and sahih.
Sahih, yes.
Yeah.
To be folded or left at the side. So this actually piqued my interest, and I wanted to share something that I came across. I usually go on Clubhouse and I talk with people over there.
Right, okay. You're a man of great patience.
We do miss you over there.
Somebody asked me, why don't you come on Clubhouse? And I said, because I appreciate my sanity. And I don't
that's a very true statement. Nonetheless, it is a venue for us laymen to learn and share ideas and listen to other learned brothers. So one thing that I have studied is about, you talked about hadith that is sarih and sahih. Mm-hmm. So I looked into the issue of rajam, stoning.
Oh, rajam, okay.
Yeah. So of course there is no ayah in the Quran that talks about that. Even in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا يُشْرِكْ فِي حُكْمِهِ أَحَدًا. So do not associate anybody with Allah's hukum. And then in Surah Maida, مَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ ظَالِمُونَ فَاسِقُونَ, all of them. So the hukum is from Allah, always. And then I went into the hadith to see if there's any hukum from Rasul alayhi salatu salam. I don't find any hadith that is sarih wa sahih, as you said, about somebody who's married, muhsin, to be killed if they are found guilty of adultery or zina, and there's 4 witnesses, for them to be stoned. There is no sahih or sarih hadith like that. There is one hadith I came across in Muslim. I think it is 1690.
I was going to say there are some in Sahih Muslim, but okay.
Yeah. But the wording is very interesting, Mufti Sahab. The wording is talking about thayyibat, thayyib.
Yeah.
It is not talking about muhsan. And thayyib in chapter 66, I think it's verse 5, it comes there in the Quran as well. And thayyib means widow. It doesn't mean muhsana.
Okay. All right. Sure. I mean, okay. So, right. I mean, this is such a big topic. So it's not one right now that I will be able to go into so much depth.
Yeah.
But just touching up on what you're saying. So, right. So, okay. So, thayyib, by the way, the way they use thayyib is in contrast to virgin. So, they use it to mean non-virgin,
Yes.
thayyib. So, right. So,
And
they
that
contrast it
requires
to bikr.
verification.
Yeah. So, this is how generally I'm just saying, yeah, of course, that's a different discussion. But the term that they use is bikr and thayyib. So, virgin and the non-virgin would be the thayyib. Now, I would right. So okay, this is I've not really explored this in that way that you're saying. I've not taken apart all the ahadith literature that is commonly found in the major books on rajam. I've not done that. So I can't, but I have obviously read, obviously, like when we covered the books and when we covered Sahih Muslim and all these, there are hadith in there. The general understanding that I would go with, and that certain ulama have taken, is that you see that rajam clearly is not from the Quran. Now, what in Sahih Muslim there is a hadith that the Jewish people come to adjudicate to the Prophet. So they say to the Prophet, we want you to judge over us based on our law. So, and then it's the famous one where the person's covering the hand and the Prophet says, look, why don't you remove your hand and read the full verse? And it says about stoning. So several scholars do feel that this is one of the first time the Prophet gets involved, and but it is with the Jewish community and it's about their law. So the question is that here, does this simply, those people who took this, they took this as a continuation of the Torah, saying that this is what it should be, the stoning, because look, there it is, it's in the Torah and the Prophet said it. This generally, the Quran does not mention it, and the Quran does mention the punishment at the time for adultery, and he mentions it as a lashing. And this is why certain scholars like Abu Zahra, he highlighted the problem and the difficulty in trying to say rajam was what the Quran wanted, because what they say is that, look, well, the Quran, the lashing is for just the unmarried people. And so he highlights that that's very difficult, because Allah then continued, because the married person is called muhsan by the Quranic, the fortified person. They say, well, that's the wording. Now, the verses, as you carry on reading them, as it's speaking about the punishment for adultery, it mentions the muhsanat from the slave girls. وَعَلَى الْمُحْسَنَاتِ نِصْفٌ min al-adab, that they have half of the punishment. So he says, well, this doesn't, well, you can't give half a stoning, so it clearly could not be talking about stoning. And he makes a very powerful point.
And there is also double punishment for the wives of the messenger in Surah Al-Ahzab mentioned.
Sure, okay, sure. But this point here with these verses about the lashing. So and then you've had there's a whole different discussion on trajectory hermeneutics. That is that can the punishment change with the day and age? And this is what several Malikiya felt was permissible, and that's when you've got people like Abul Qasim al-Burzali and the whole several Maghariba that came after him about 600 years ago that changed these punishments to different penalties, financial penalties, and they said that this is what the Sharia dictates. This is not that what they're saying we're doing this because of our desires. They're saying this is, and sure, people can say, look, they got it wrong, and that's their opinion, but it's also an opinion and a way of looking at Islam. And it's also what some of the Ottomans did. Sulaiman al-Qanuni did as well. Hence he was called Sulaiman al-Qanuni in the Hanafi fiqh. And people may disagree with it, but it's a way of thinking and it's there. So it's tied under Maqasid al-Sharia. So what you can I think as a summary, as a very brief summary, not doing justice to the topic, is that, well, look, the stoning is there in Islamic history and in Islamic law. It is there for the most part, according to many, let's say the majority of the people. Now, there's a question: how did it get there?
Exactly.
And that's not quite clear how it got there, according to several people. So several people will say, well, because you see, whatever answer you provide, it then it raises more questions, because people could say, well, it was here, the Prophet said it. But then you've got another hadith, let's say Sayyidina Umar, or people transmitted from Sayyidina Umar, that it used to be in the Quran. And then, well, that raises more problems and questions than it solves.
Yes.
But then you can't, but when you start answering that, then this one can't be right. Because
And
if it was there,
people talk
Quran,
about
then
this الشيخ والشيخة إذا زنايا. So that's
that's
also an
the
old man and old woman, and that doesn't say that a
sure.
married
But
woman.
and even bigger problems than that,
Yes.
it being in the Quran, but it's not in the Quran.
Yes.
So then it means that certain parts of the Quran today are missing, that were never there. And then, okay, this raises a different discussion. So, okay, well, this has been part of, let's say, it's been part of Islamic law. What most Muslim history shows, it was seldom ever practiced. I mean, it was because the ruling is that, well, to see it obviously makes it almost impossible, because 4 people have to witness actual penetration, according to the scholars. So now that's very rarely, because normally when one person comes in and busts someone at it, the person gets up. Now you
real
don't
issue,
see
yeah, the
actual
Mufti said the
penetration.
real issue is about whether it is actually Islamic. So where is the demarcation of whether something
Yes.
could be called Islamic?
So what right, so the question is this. The question is, it's clearly a part of Islamic jurisprudence. It's clearly a part of Islamic law, fiqh.
The
Right. So
jurisprudence of the scholars, but not of
sure.
Islam.
Right, but
Because
obviously
when
the
you say
scholars
something is
are
of Islam,
scholars
it
of
has to
Islam.
be bima anzalallah. It cannot be
Right. So
called
this
Islam.
is a different discussion. So I agree with you. See, I'm not of the view that I believe that this was, in my understanding, this was something that was a continuation of the Torah. Those people who kept it, it was never in the Quran. And this is why it was from the Ahkam. And according to trajectory hermeneutics, it was changed, which is according to the Maliki Madhab and the likes of Abul Qasim al-Burzali and all the people that came after him that supported that view. So I'm of that understanding. So to me, that this would not be applicable and it would not be a part of the Islamic law. But that said, I do recognize that, look, this ruling is there in most of the Islamic fiqh and most of the Islamic. Now, the question is, how did it get there? So most people will say it got there because of these ahadith.
Yes.
Now, the hadith are there. They're not that the hadith ain't there. The hadith are there. The question is that some of the hadith, then it's not a congruent picture. Like, they raise as many questions as they give answers. So they do give answers, but they raise more questions. So one of them is saying, well, oh, it began with, you've got the incident of the Jewish people coming. One of them is saying, no, it used to be a verse of the Quran and it disappeared. One of them is saying, well, and then you've got, so what I'm trying to say is, it's not a congruent picture of how it got there. But we know it's in the fiqh, in Islamic fiqh, with the majority of the people, it's been there. In application, we also seem to know that it was seldom practiced. They don't seem to, like, if you look at the watha'iq of the, whether it's going to be the Andalusian or whether it's going to be the, in fact, in more detail, which is still available today, the Ottomans, which was therefore, the better part of 7th century. You can see that in their edicts are still there and they're being translated and people have done PhDs on them. I think they only ever found something like 2 cases or something. So you can see that it's okay. It seems to be there. It doesn't seem to be there on the ground. It seems to be in the books. How did it get in the books? Well, they say because of the hadith. Is it because, well, how did it get in the hadith? People say, well, it's from the Prophet. No, it's from God. No, it's from the Torah. And there seems to be some mixture. And there seems to be some scholars about 600 years ago who said, well, No, it was just part of the laws, and the laws change. And they changed. They said this day and age it changed to financial penalties. Other days and in other times it would change accordingly. So you've got this whole plethora. And the reason I'm mentioning that is I'm just trying to do disclosure of what stands, as opposed to saying, look, nobody's ever mentioned. People, of course, the majority of the people have mentioned it. Let's be honest. The question is that all of these are valid questions. So how did it emerge? What was the, what fashioned it? Did it come from God? Did it come from the Prophet? Some people say, no, it came from the Prophet. Some people say, no, it came from God. It came in the Quran. Some people say, no, it came from the Torah. It was a continuation. And was it susceptible to change? Some people say, yeah, it was susceptible to change. Because Sayyidina Umar suspends it. You see, because if it was the had of Allah, then it shouldn't be stopped at all. But he suspends certain hudud, let's say, based on, okay, that's the chopping of the hand and other things. But you can see that, well, okay, these things are subject to time frames and changes. And so this is the summary. But you're right, there's a lot of questions on how did it enter Islamic jurisprudence? It enters through these hadith, but what is there isn't a pristine route. There's a lot of there's a mixture.
Yeah, the real issue, Mufti Sahab, I'm from Afghanistan originally. Okay, so it is something very closer to me, because I have in my own life seen more than 2 stoning.
I categorically do not believe that this to be part of for centuries. And this was never, to me, so I was giving the disclosure of this is how the views are. Now, it seems that, look, this was a continuation of the Torah for whoever thought it. In the lifetime of the Prophet, it was the verses that were in the Quran. Now, it does seem to be that certain people may have thought that because the Prophet ruled for the Jewish people according to the Torah on this thing, that Sahih Muslim, that some people felt, oh, maybe that was also meant to be for us. So it got incorporated into the culture. So I do feel that was an ijtihad. I feel that was not the accurate position, because the accurate position was the Quran, the verses of the Quran. Now, it's not that those people, let's say, that didn't know those verses of the Quran, but it's that this understanding that they saw the Prophet adjudicate, make arbitrate for that Jewish community based on the Torah. And they may have understood that, well, because the Prophet did it, now this is the new ruling for us. So
yeah, but it raises a question that it becomes shirk, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا يُشْرِكْ فِي حُكْمِهِ
I think that's a stretch. No, I think that's a stretch, because I don't think anybody that brought this ruling in brought it thinking they're doing shirk. They may have thought, I think this is where it stems from. It's from this case. I think that case is, that is case 0. This is where it begins. In my estimation, it begins where the Prophet arbitrates for the Jewish dispute that was taking place. And this is case 0. So the Prophet is doing it. And the Prophet isn't doing it. They do it, but he arbitrates for them. They come to him. It's in Sahih Muslim. They say that this has happened. He committed adultery with his wife and blah, 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 blah. And we want you to, you decide. No, you don't decide. You judge according from our book. So that's there now, and the Torah stoning is clearly there in the Torah, so it adds up. This would be case 0. Now, certain companions who may have seen this happening, now that the Prophet said, well, okay, this is it, not reading, but had them read it in the text from the Torah, some people may have thought, well, oh, maybe this is the new ruling then in Islam. So this is where the understanding comes. So it's nothing to do with shirk. It's to do with perception. So for example, there's a hadith about fasting. Now, some person, there's a hadith that the Prophet is asked about kissing during fasting, and he says it's fine. And there's an incident where a young person comes and asks the Prophet, and the Prophet says, no, don't do it. And there's an incident where the person, one of the people watching, he says that, what is this about? How come it was okay, and here it's not? You said don't. And it was, the reply is, or the understanding is, that this was a newly young, very hot-blooded, kind of excited person, and it was just for him. It wasn't that, it's just basically safeguarding that this guy, just fast out the day and then have at it. But because in between, you're not going to be able to control yourself. But that wasn't said in the hadith. In the hadith, the Prophet just said, no, don't do it. So some companion looking at that, just hearing that part, might think, well, actually kissing is haram during fasting, because he only heard that part. So it's not that he heard it wrong. He actually heard what he heard, but somebody who saw the other part may have thought, well, actually, no, the Prophet said to this person, you can do it. So it's absolutely fine. So you see, it's where the understanding stems from. So this is how I see it. So clearly stoning, I do not see stoning as part of Islam, in the sense that, is it something Allah has ordained? I don't see it as that at all. I see that it emerged from the Torah. It was a continuation from there. Some people may have understood that, and it became a part of the Islamic corpus of law, of jurisprudence. Hence, most people clearly found it very uncomfortable, found something not right, unsettling about it, that they set the bar so high that it almost became impractical to do. And throughout like 14 centuries of Islamic existence, there's hardly any things where it happens, apart from where people have gone into barbarism and done it, just like you get the recent cases in Afghanistan and these places where they were doing it. But where you had a continued Islamic civilization, it hardly ever happens. And in fact, places like the Ottomans, they clearly redefined it. Just as in the Maghrib, they redefined it as well, and said that no, the Sharia dictates that we change it with the day and age based on maqasid. So clearly, to me, this was not something divine. It was not something that was, and it's clearly not in the Quran. And like people like Sheikh Abu Zahra say, it goes against the verses of the Quran. So that's how I would understand it. Okay,
So,
I do understand that many people.
sorry, what you said. If you believe it's not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if somebody is doing it, what kind of?
I feel it's clear. I feel to do that, especially people trying to do that today, like they are. This is clear dhulm. I feel it's clear dhulm. I would condemn it outright, regardless of it being in the fiqh.
Yes.
Because the thing is that, look, even their fiqh has changed with the day and age. So even, the Afghanistan, for example, the Hanafi madhab has changed. And it's very clear that, look, let's be honest, it's very clear that the way the fiqh had set the standards, the rules, nobody caught that. Nobody caught that. Like that is, it's a very tough sell. 4 people walked in and saw penetration. 4 people, come on, that's because look, this is what happens. A person bursts into a room, sees somebody having an affair. The moment somebody bursts in, people get up.
Yes.
You don't see anything. You just see 2 naked people at most. Let's say this is the best scenario, and you know what they were up to, but you don't see it. Now that in Islam is haram for them to carry out that had. It is haram, but emotions get the better of them. They want to punish.
But this is all created by men. It's a secular law for people seeing it, with their eyes.
Exactly.
It's a secular law that they have created and called Islamic.
100%. But what I'm trying to say is, even by their fiqhi standards, it is not, what they are doing isn't even according to that. They know that. They're not. You see, even them trying to argue that this is in the fiqh, it's not like that. They are not practicing that by any standard.
I
So
heard this from Javed Ahmad Ghamdi Sahab. He refers to chapter 5, verse 33, that those who do fisad on earth, that they should be killed severely. So one of the ways of killing severely is by stoning. And he says that this is fisad fil ard. So if somebody is raping, then this punishment goes for the rape. And he cites the case of Myra and Ma'iz. And Ma'iz gets stoned and Myra is sent back home. So this is what Ghamdi Sahib refers to.
you see, but this is the thing. Now, this is the thing. You see, this whole hadith with Ma'iz, and this whole thing. It is, first of all, very in itself. You see, that's an interesting case, because in that case, the Prophet said, "Why did you not let him go? You should have let him go."
Yes.
They say it's in Musnad of Ahmed, the hadith, that they say that they catch him because he runs away. They catch him and they stone him, and he says, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it." And they stone him. He says, "I repent." And the Prophet rebukes them. He says, "Halla taraktumuhu." Says, "Why didn't you let him go?" So this is it. You see, the hadith, it's not that the hadith aren't there, but they raise as many questions as they give answers to. So this is why several people in the Hanbali madhab felt that there was isqatul hudud, all hudud with tawbah. That it was, so it's, it's not, you see, this is such a detailed discussion, because it's not that the fiqh isn't there. This is there in the fiqh, but the fiqh has so many layers to it like this, that then people ignore all the other layers, and that's not a complete discussion then. Because if you're going to discuss hudud, first of all, it's from the past, then you have to discuss what they all said about it. What you have to discuss, those people who said hudud could be substituted. You have to discuss those people who said all hudud can be dropped with tawbah, all hudud. You have to discuss this then, because it is part of our legacy of Islam. If you're going to say, well, we're just going to take this one thing and we're going to do this act of barbarism, that any person who sees that act will have no doubt that Muslims, that they will abhor and hate Islam till their dying breath, right? It is so shocking. I watched once a movie and I was so moved. I mean, it broke me down, honestly. It was some Iranian movie. I think something of I've forgotten now. It was an Iranian movie. Was it about a lady called Soraya or something? But honestly, and it was so, oh my God, I watched it something like 14 years ago, about like 12, I think about 10 years, 12 years ago, something. But still now, if I think of it, it disturbs me. I find this completely munafi for the rahmatan lil alamin. And I would say that, look, if people want to bring it as a fiqh discussion, I accept it as a fiqh discussion. I do accept that I feel it's wrong to say none of this exists in the literature. It does. It's all there in the literature. But then we need to have an open, clear discussion on all the other iterations where people are saying like, at-tawbah tusqatul hudud kullaha, where we're having a discussion on, because you got to bring that in then, and you got to bring this hadith.
But the principle is given to us in the Quran. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم فإن تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول. So if there is any kind of a dispute, then I don't care about who said what. Then we take it back to Allah and His Rasul.
See, but the problem then is, the problem is the same thing. Sure. I'm with you. But I would say that, the problem there is we never really take it back to Allah and His Messenger. We always take it back to the interpretation of what we think Allah and His Messenger are saying. And that's just the same. It's always the interpretation of what we think is being said, as opposed to what is objectively being said, because none of us have access to true objectivity. None of us truly, we can just say, well, we think this is what we understand from this verse, and it's the same problem. So I feel that in that sense, it's worth bringing all these discussions, because all these people have said these things. They've said, if you want to take it to the hadith, then there is that hadith, that the tawbah does seem to be mu'athira. It does seem to be impacting. The same hadith with Ma'iz, that the Prophet saying, why did you not let him go? So it does have that discussion. It does have the Hanbali discussion then on Tawbah and dropping all of hudud. It does have the Maliki discussion as well as the Hanabila discussion on all hudud. Can they be substituted? It does have this. So when we bring all of this in, also the discussion that our hudud not punishments, not simply situated in time. So all the hudud that were mentioned in the Quran was simply hudud from 7th century Arabia.
But the real question is whether this is a had to begin with, because the had is 100 lashes. That's a had, absolutely.
No, but my point.
Whether it's a had or not, this is the point of contention.
No, I think bigger than that. You see, I think bigger than that is the definition of how the phenomenology of a had and how a had emerges, not what a had is, not as in is. You see, you're talking about tahqiqul manat, and also I'm talking the ontology, the being of a had. That a had simply. You see, the Quran was going to only address the Arabs with things the Arabs already had. It was not going to tell them a punishment that the Chinese had, for example. It wasn't going to do that because they weren't Chinese people. So they were Arabs that lived in a certain, like, it wasn't going to tell them to use a weapon that they had in Scandinavia. It was going to just address them with things that the Arab climate had. So it was anchored and rested and nested in Arab tribal society. So the question is, when Islam expands beyond that and those norms have changed, does the day and age then impact the realities of those hudud? And this is what Abu al-Qasim al-Burzali was saying 600 years ago. He was saying that the maqasid of the Sharia say, as Islam spreads, it reflects its environment. So and he said today in the Maghrib, we don't have that environment that they had he's saying this 600 years ago. He's saying we don't have that environment that they had there. So we don't stone people today. He says that this is not the environment of the Maghrib. This is 600 years ago Morocco and Mauritania and that part of the world. So he's saying here we do different things. So this is what the Sharia wants us to do, not what I want. This is his thinking. Now, what I'm saying is all of these things have to be part of the discussion. I have to wrap this up, man. Sorry, this is not my best morning discussion to have, but it's been good. We'll catch up, Musleh. Assalamu alaikum. People, I do not like getting into these discussions so early in the morning. They fire the cylinders in the wrong way. People, right? Okay. Oh, damn. We've got one final. Oh, we've gone on too long, but we've got on the friendly Muslim. Do you have a camera? Is there no camera? If there's no camera, yeah. Is there camera? Yes. No. People. Right. Okay. Sorry. Was there? Did I miss a super chat? No. There was a sticker. Shukran. Much love, people. Let's wrap this up. It's been awesome. I'm not really still recuperating. Take care of yourselves, people. If you need to reach out to me, Instagram is a good place. If you want to just have a quick question, by the way, if you reach out to me, please search, if you're going to ask me questions, don't bother until you've searched those questions on YouTube with my name, and because I've probably answered it already. And if you can't, you see, to me, it feels like if you can't even be bothered, then you're not really interested in an answer. So please seek for yourself as well. So do go out there, type it into YouTube, search. I mean, if you want my answers, then put my name and search the questions, refine your searches, choose better keywords, have a look, watch some of the videos. If you've watched them and you think, okay, maybe there was something that I didn't answer, then you can ask. But for quick stuff, Instagram is I'm quite responsive on there. If you want in-depth analyses on things, if you want discussions, then you can, or you've just got other problems that you want to talk about and you want an in-depth discussion, then I'm not going to really do that over text message chat in Instagram. You're more than welcome to go to Patreon. You can book in a one-to-one perspective session, which are an hour long, and you can discuss them with me on that. You can go through Patreon and it gives you the different tiers and you can select that. Obviously, if you've got personal problems that you need to discuss, then sure, that should be an ample amount of time to discuss that. I don't really, I can't, I'm sure hopefully you're mature, everybody has the maturity to understand that I can't really be providing, life changing responses over text message Instagram. It's not really going to happen, is it? So if it's something that pressing, I do have a platform where you can go and you can book yourself in, and I can, assist you if I can assist you. Sure. Other than that, you're more than welcome to join my weekly lives where I do give people, the time to come on live and discuss. Guys, take very good care of yourselves. Salam Allahi alaikum wa khuda hafiz.